by the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilmember Scott Smith.
Oh, great and all-loving God, as we've just completed this Labor Day weekend, we have in our thoughts today all those who labor to improve our city, our state, and our country, and our world. We ask that you bless them, and specifically this evening, we ask that you send your Spirit upon us and fill us with your wisdom, so that we may strive to understand each other, understand the issues, and make wise and good decisions for the city of Highland. Amen.
Amen. Please stand and follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Appreciate the prayer and flag. We now have time set apart for what's called unscheduled public appearances. If there is anyone here that would like to come up and address the council, we'd like to invite them at this time to come up and just state their name and keep their comments to 3 minutes. So this time we'll open up the schedule on public appearances if anyone would like to come up and address the council.
I don't know if this is the proper way of doing this. My name is Ryan Best. I'm a business owner, and I've got a sign in a building that you guys in the Highland City that says Gold, Silver, Crypto on it. And that building is not made for pawn shops and coin dealers, if you will. But that's not what I am. So that's why I wanted to come tonight and talk about it. So if I need to wait for
you are actually item number 3I, so you're on the agenda, so we'll have you come up during that time if that's okay.
There we go.
Okay. Is there anyone else like to come up and address the city council? Seeing none, we'll conclude our unscheduled public appearances. But before we kind of get going too much into our consent item, I would like to introduce our new library director. So if Karen would please come up and maybe kind of just share a little bit about some of us were there in the interview, but go ahead and come up and introduce yourself to the council. And then if there's questions the council might have, maybe just kind of give us a little bit about you.
Sure. Good evening, council. Good evening, public. My name is Karen Liu. I am the new library director for Highland City Library. I am from Orem, Utah. I live over the hill in Draper. I've been a librarian for 18 years. I have worked in public libraries, academic libraries, school libraries, and most recently the state library in Utah, a governing agency that administers to all public libraries across the state. At the state library, we hold public libraries to certain standards. My favorite thing about working in a public library is seeing the children come through the doors. So I got to see story time today, which was awesome. There were over 55 people there. It just made my heart sing, so happy. I've tried to welcome everyone today who has entered the library and introduce myself. I know change can be sometimes scary and challenging, but I hope to continue Donna Cardin's tradition in making the library a welcoming space for every person in Highland. So thank you.
Thank you. Any questions anyone has for Karen?
I have one. Did you work at all with Colleen Eggert? She was the state librarian a few years ago, but she's probably been retired for a while.
I did not interlap with Colleen, but she's very well respected. Yeah, people loved her.
I worked with her. She was the chief librarian at American Fork some years ago before she became the state librarian. And she's actually been in our meetings here advocating for the library. So I just wondered if you had worked with her at all.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott. You know everyone in American Fork. Cassandra, Colleen.
I know a number of people.
Changing jobs is also a big change. And so really appreciate that you're willing to jump in with Highland in making that change. We're just so excited to have you. You've got a wonderful background and really excited about the things that you're looking forward to do. So welcome and thank you for accepting.
Thank you. I am honored to hold your trust. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Just a comment. When I first came on the council, learning about the library and the offerings of this library right here, it was the biggest awakening of anything that I've learned on the council, and I've learned a lot. There's a lot to learn. But what it represents is probably the most active community-based program the city has to offer. So you're stepping into something that is critical to our residents and to our community. I really believe it is far more active than anything else we do. And we've got wonderful things going on, but the library has the involvement of the community more so than anything else. And I just appreciate you coming in and look forward to everything you have to offer.
Thank you, Councilman Ron. I appreciate it.
Okay, here comes some hard questions. You ready for Karen? So, were you an Orem Tiger? You said you grew up in Orem.
How did you know?
I kind of thought so. Were you an Orem Tiger?
I am,
Oh,
yes.
awesome. That is great. So we've got an Orem Tiger amongst us. Now we're going to ask some really important ones. So what is your favorite food and favorite dessert? We need to know.
Oh my gosh, if it doesn't have chocolate, does it even count?
Okay, so
I think we're going to get along really well.
so we're finding out some things that might come. So you like chocolate. Is there a certain food you like to eat or things that way?
You know, I'm happy with all food. I don't know that there's no food that I dislike, unfortunately.
Well, I think all of us can relate to that one. So, well, we welcome you here to Highland. We look forward to getting to know you more. And I heard you mention Donna's name as as Ron has mentioned. I remember coming in, and there's different departments that we've had struggle in the city. And I think me and Scott will remember back in what we call the troubling times. And as Donna came in and kind of started showing and bringing some appreciation, I think, for the council to understand how the library is supposed to function and some things. And so we look forward, that you mentioned about how you've attended our different story times and different things. So we look forward to seeing how your fingerprint comes on the library. So welcome to Highland City and the library.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Okay, thank you. Okay, with that, we do have one consent item. We have consent item number 2A. It's approval of the meeting minutes from July 8th, 2025. Do I have a motion, or would there be polled?
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt the consent items.
I have a motion by Doug.
Second.
And a second by Ron. Are we electronic voting tonight? We are. So we'll go ahead and go. Ron, okay, there we are. Okay, that passes 5-0. Well, now I'll move on to item number 3A. This item will have a public hearing for the public to be able to come up and make comments. It is a business use condition called gold, silver, crypto. We'll turn some time to Rob Patterson. We will then have Ryan Best, the applicant, also be able to come up and share a little bit, and then if there's some other questions or discussion.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. You got a little bit of a preview already, which is fantastic. This is located down in the Ridgeview development, just west of Costa Vida there. As you may recall, we had that new application process that Council approved back in May to review new uses for business areas in the city. This site is zoned Ridgeview PD, the Ridgeview Commercial District. It permits collectible sales, financial institutions, professional and business offices, and retail sales of new merchandise, and prohibits thrift and pawn shops. Apparently, I put council up there. I think I meant to say the council can approve new uses after holding a public hearing.
So are you saying the council is not supposed to go use this service as the gold or for crypto?
You're welcome to use it if you approve it. So under the code standard, you can approve the use. There's a list of different factors. I walked through all those in the staff report. I'm just going to focus on the one I think is most important, which is the nature, scope, and impact of proposed use compared to existing allowed uses, and the kind of whether use or similar use is prohibited by applicable land use regulations. So I think the question really is the buying and selling of precious metals more, I'm sorry, I have typos throughout this thing, more akin to collectible sales, financial institution, and retail sales of new merchandise, or pawn shops? The first set of group of uses are allowed, and the second one would be prohibited. Per the applicant, it really, upon staff review, sounds more like the former than the latter. It's more of a institutional consultation, buying and selling, but not like a you have your display cases of gold and things that you're buying and selling from. So for that reason, staff is recommending in favor of allowing this use. We did incorporate kind of the comment from the applicant where they would not entertain or involve kind of the storefront or the display cases of materials to avoid that pawn shop type look. So our recommendation is to approve it. You do have to hold a public hearing first, and we have the applicant here as well who can maybe explain more details of how the business is supposed to operate.
Can I just ask one question? If a jewelry store opened up in the same zone, and they had gold or silver, and they had display cases, could they have display cases? Could they sell that gold and silver if they were classified as a jewelry store?
Yes. Okay. So we allow, so retail sales of new merchandise is just allowed in Ridgeview. Where staff got a little bit concerned when we saw the business license come through was the buying of materials and selling them again, which, in coupling with the prohibited use of pawn shops, we're worried that this was kind of a more akin to that kind of like they buy from someone, sell it to someone else, and which the city prohibits in the zone. So as the applicant explained a little bit further, that concern I think has been alleviated in a lot of ways. But I would encourage you to listen to the applicant to have them maybe explain exactly how they anticipate their business operating a bit better.
So can I ask a question?
Of course.
Does our code prohibit like a stockbroker?
No, it would allow that.
Okay, I mean, because you're buying and selling stocks, buying and selling gold, buying and selling crypto. I mean, you're doing all that, so I'm not sure there's a big difference.
Oh, that's.
I mean,
I think you're right. I think that's why we've kind of come down on with how they explain how their business operates. We think it's more like that type of operation.
Okay. With that, we'll invite Mr. Best to come back up, and maybe if you'll just state your name and everything, and then maybe you can share a little bit about your business and the practice, how you do it.
Sure. My name is Ryan Best. The company Gold, Silver, Crypto was an office idea. It was an idea to put together an office, a place where people could come, meet with us by appointment only, and then get consulted with those three topics: gold, silver, or crypto. And we probably came across like a pawn shop because of our name, Gold, Silver, and so then we also buy a lot of gold, and we buy a lot of silver, and we sell a lot of gold, and we sell a lot of silver. But we don't do it like I don't hold it. I'm a wholesaler. So what you do is you'll come to me and you'll say, hey, I'm looking for X, and I'll go get it for you, and then I'll deliver it to you. Or you'll come to me and you say, hey, I've got Y, and I want to sell it, and I'll buy it from you. And then I turn around and I sell that to my wholesale network. So it's really just it's an office. If you ever come and visit me, you'll see it's just an office with a couch. I got 3 leather chairs. I've got some cameras. The cameras are for a podcast that we do, so it's very not pawn shop.
Are they massage chairs? You mentioned
no,
chairs. Just want to know how relaxed we get there.
They're comfortable. They are comfortable chairs.
Go check it out, Kurt.
Yeah.
So how many employees do you have?
We have 2 employees.
2 employees, and they're full-time, part-time?
They're part-time.
Okay.
Now, you mentioned at first it was going to be by appointment. Are you by appointment, or are you open for certain hours?
We're by appointment. That's all we are, is by appointment. So if you come to the storefront, there's a QR code, and they'll scan the QR code, and there's scheduled times that they can meet us there.
So are you only in the office when you have appointments? You're not like sitting there 8 to 5 every day?
No, we're not.
Is there some security issues we need to be aware of? I know you mentioned you had cameras, and so because you have other tenants in that building. Is there some things that you see security-wise that you've implemented? I know there's things that are confidential, but I'm saying what type of security measures have you put in, because you're having type of things that can be sold fairly easily.
Yeah, we chose to stay away from like having a vault or a safe, simply because we're on the 2nd floor and it's going to be kind of heavy. So that was the real reason. The second reason was I don't let it sit. So if you come in, you bring 1,000 ounces of silver to me, I'm taking that with me when I leave. So it just doesn't sit overnight. So there really wasn't any need for security or anything like that. The cameras that we have are for actually a podcast. Like we do a live podcast. And so that's where the cameras come in. So that's why I was saying when you come and visit, you might see some cameras. That's where they're for.
Chief Williams, with you hearing about precious metals and things, naturally, what would be some of your thoughts? I mean, to me, there's a fear, to be honest with you, say you always will be taking things out, so they're not there, so now your safety outside the building.
Sure.
What, would you see any concerns with this type of business, things of that nature?
Now, if they're not going to have product on hand or things that are going to be stored in the building, I wouldn't worry about that too much. I think he's probably been in the business long enough to know what precautions to take when he's moving things in and out. But that would be my guess.
I stay very quiet. I don't raise a lot of attention to myself. No, but yeah, you're right. We're walking around with a lot of money at times. We are. So, and if someone knew, I guess they would know that. So we don't try to advertise the fact that we run around with gold in our pockets. But sometimes we are running around with gold in our pockets.
So you're selling gold bullion physical, gold bullion, and silver bullion?
Correct.
And then the crypto?
Crypto's just
held
like it
someplace
sounds.
else, but you're not putting a blockchain in there or anything like that?
No. We
So
do
when you
have
say-
one, but we're not. That's not what that's for.
Yes, please. That wouldn't be allowed. That's industrial area only, so.
Yeah, we're not doing that.
If you have any ideas, don't just discard those ideas.
So that's a good question, Rob. Let's assume he had a Bitcoin miner in his business that was going.
Couldn't
You brought
do
up,
it
you
there.
brought up, would that be an industrial use, or is that a permitted use since it's a computer?
I mean, it's akin to a large server rack and just a lot of them. It'd be a struggle for them to get the utilities they need to cool it down and to
Correct.
power it properly, but that would be there'd be some design elements in the building process that would have to go through to even look at that.
In this year, the legislature passed HB
306.
230, which does not allow us to control blockchain
Oh, yeah.
in an industrial area. We cannot restrict it, we can't ban it, we can't add any additional restrictions to the restrictions that we already have. So,
I'm fine with this. I think
Just
it's a little
we just-
loophole.
Sorry.
I'm just saying, I'm
We-
fine with your
we
business.
do need to have a
Yeah.
public hearing on this, just so you do. So, other questions?
Yeah, can I ask one more question? So I just like to see how your business model works. Let's say I had 3 gold 1-ounce coins, and I bring them to you, or I talk to you about it. How do you go about processing that?
So if you want to sell them to me, or you want to
Right, I want to sell them to you.
sell them back to me? So I'll meet you, and we'll simply do a transaction. I usually give you a certified check from Chase Bank because it's close. So we'll usually go down to the bank together, and we'll walk into the bank. I get the certified check, I give it to you, you hand me the gold, and then I go and stash that gold in my stash.
Okay, but you don't tell us
But
what
we
it is.
don't, I wouldn't even, in that
Yeah.
particular case, sir, I wouldn't even probably get you to the office. Because if you're calling me and you say you have 3 ounces of gold, there's no reason to take you to the office unless you want to meet. And sometimes you do, but this is a good old boys club, and they've done their research online to find out who I am, and then I don't want to take them to the office if there's no reason to take them to the office. So I'll just probably do that transaction in the bank, actually in the Chase Bank.
So if I want to do that, I would meet you at the Chase Bank? And, okay.
Or we'd meet at the office in Highland. I do whatever's comfortable for you, because I mean, obviously you're walking around with, your money, and I'm asking you to trust me, and vice versa. So it's a little, but with a conversation, it gets comfortable, and then we meet wherever it works for you.
So if I wanted to buy 3 gold coins, 1 ounce each, how would that happen?
Okay, so in that case, what I'll do is I'll make sure that I have it. So if I have it, I'll tell you to come and we'll meet. We'll do the exact opposite versus I give you the metal versus I take the metal. If I don't have it, I'm going to order it for you. I'm going to have you wire me the money, and I'm going to ship it to your doorstep. So we won't even meet.
Okay.
Now, Rob, let's kind of go through what maybe the concern was about the zoning here. You're stating if it was a reselling of used product or things that way, there was a concern. Is that because it's more of a pawn shop type of dealing?
So it's just the permitted uses in Ridgeview talk about retail sales specifically of new merchandise,
Okay.
or the sale of collectibles, and then separately prohibits pawn shops. So it's one of those things of it can kind of fit into either depending on the business model. And so staff was just a little concerned that, maybe we shouldn't approve this without the council getting your eyes on that and making sure you're comfortable with this type of use going into Ridgeview.
So let me ask you, let's assume your business, Morse, and you'd like to do Pokemon cards. Would that be a permitted use?
I think that
Because
would fall
some would
under
buy and sell
collectibles.
Pokemon cards.
It does say collectibles sales would be allowed.
So let's assume he even also ventures, he finds some antique firearms. You're dealing in that, those who deal in the gold and the silver, sometimes also deal in collectibles. That's also, would that fit in this type of zoning, or is that something we need to consider again?
I mean, at some
You're
point,
saying collectibles,
that's what's allowed, so it would have to be based on whatever the business was proposed. And like with this one, if staff wasn't comfortable with it, we'll do what we did with Mr. Best and say, hey, we can't approve this just yet. Fill out this application, let's go to the city council.
is the council clear of what the request is here?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, this does have a public hearing, so we will open up the public hearing on item number 3A, this gold, silver, and crypto business. Is there anyone who'd like to come up and address the council on this item as the public hearing? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to council for either further discussion or motion.
I think I'm fine with this. We had HB 306 just recently passed some legislation that allowed people with precious metals to purchase items via the state. So this is kind of something that is in our state and an applicable business. So I don't know if everyone else agrees, but if so, I'd like to make a motion and with that city council approve as a permitted use within the Ridgeview Plan Development precious metal sales and purchases subject to the limitation that the use not incorporate retail showcases or displays.
I'll second it.
Have a motion by Kim, second by Scott. If there's no further discussion, we'll go ahead and vote on this item. Passes 5-0. There you go, Mr. Best. So we'll now move on to our next item, which is number 3B. This item pertains to the proposed amendments to the fence code related to privacy fencing near open space and trails. We'll have be Rob Patterson also address this one.
Thank you, Mayor. This kind of stems out of the conversation we had a little while back about the fence near the Foxwood Estates Canterbury Trail area. At the council's direction, staff proposed some options for fencing regulations to potentially, to look at. Our fence code talks about fencing near open space and trails. Should we care about open space versus trails? Should we care about trails that exist versus are planned? So staff took some of those options to the Planning Commission to get their review, and so Planning Commission issued their recommendation, and now we're taking it to council. So I'm just going to walk through the options that were presented. So the first one is obviously just don't make any changes, leave the code as it is. So if you're near certain open space or trail areas, you have to have 4 feet of privacy and 2 feet of open fencing on top. It's essentially in kind of longer, narrow corridors for trails and open space. And that doesn't matter how that open space is used. Any open space trail area, that's our current regulation. And so it's these types of fences that we would allow.
Rob, can I ask a question?
Of course.
Define open space
Well, that's
as defined in this city, because we oftentimes think of open space being associated with the 18 open space neighborhoods, but I consider parks to be open space. And so how does it work?
That's another good point. We have traditionally not considered parks as open space areas. Or if we have, it's been part of the exception. We have one for just really open areas. So we usually don't require, at least I think previously, I know our old fence code, a few years back, used to require even near parks for it to be 4 feet of privacy, 2 feet of open. But I think we have changed that over the years to allow them to have privacy fencing near parks, but not certain trail corridors. We don't have a good definition of open space, so staff has kind of just been interpreting it as the open space neighborhoods, property owned by the city that's kind of in conservation type areas, and trail corridors that are dedicated to the city. But typically not parks.
But but the open space in the open space neighborhoods, a lot of it is parks. I really kind of thought, because I've been involved with these issues for years, and I'm trying to think, what are we defining as a special open space here? Do you see what I mean?
No, and that's, okay,
Yeah.
so what I just heard, I'm going to repeat back what I understood, Rob, you said. If it's the Highland Family Park and it's open space, they can have a solid fence in their backyard if it's, in a sense, a city park. But
Right.
if they're in the 18 open space neighborhoods and they back any of these small open areas, they cannot have a solid fence. It has to have 4 feet plus 2. Is that correct?
Correct, more or less, yes.
Well, if they backed up to one of the parks, then those are probably more than 30 feet wide.
That's true.
And so that wouldn't be an issue in that particular
That's right.
case.
We did change it where as
We
long as
changed
it
it
has a
so where if
30-foot
it's
corridor.
wider,
Okay.
it doesn't
Okay.
count as open space. We even say that if it's wider than 30 feet but cannot be seen from public areas such as a street or park, so we've kind of taken parks as a separate thing from our open space. But that was a change that came in a few years ago.
Okay, then we also changed that if it's at a road corridor like we did over in the Canterbury, and it was 150, 180 feet,
300 feet.
300 feet, if you could see it, then you could have, we have changed this little ordinance around quite a bit.
Quite a bit. That's why the first option presented is to not change it anymore, is just to leave it as it is.
Yeah, that's true.
Which, quite honestly, I really try everything I can to support the Planning Commission's recommendations. I've been on the Planning Commission, and I've been frustrated when the council did not even address what we had proposed or recommended. But in this case, I'm not in favor of what the Planning Commission
Why don't we hear what, we
recommended.
haven't heard what, why don't we?
Yeah, let's hear the rest. I just wanted to
Planning
define
Commission.
open space because most of the debate we've had in the past has to do with the trails in open space.
Yes.
And not just particular open space areas. That's why I wanted to define that.
No, it's a very
Yeah.
good question, and it actually gets to some of the options later. So,
Right.
option, and I kind of gave, this is up in viewpoint on the left. It's kind of hard to see, but on the house, kind of where the red arrow on the south side, they were required to put up a fence, 4 feet privacy, 2 feet open, because the property just across the way from them is within like 20 feet. That's like a 20-foot wide corridor, so they were required to put in an open style on the top fence. This is under old code, but
And under current code, they would not have been.
Under
because
current
you can
code, they
see
would
it from
not
the
have
trail
been.
to the west, right? Or to
Correct.
the, yeah, okay.
But I'm just going to use it as an example of a smaller open space area. Under our current code, maybe would require them, if it's long enough, to have that 2 feet of open space on top. Same with the Foxwood Estates Canterbury Trail corridor. Even when we're not building it, we still would typically require the top 2 feet to be open.
So let me clarify this again. I've walked through a lot of these neighborhoods. I wasn't aware of fences like that because you're saying it's only 20 feet across, and so they have to have an open one?
When they applied for the fence permit at the time, yes. We've now tweaked it a little bit, so if the corridor is less than 300 feet,
Then it could be privacy.
then it could be privacy. So if
So
they were to apply today, I would allow them to have a privacy.
Okay, so we're going to just do guesstimation. Let's assume that we look at the picture on the left. The first 2 homes might be within 300 feet, okay? But your third home in they might be 300 feet in, so they'd have to have the 2 feet privacy, but their neighbors on both sides could be within 300 feet, and they could have a solid.
Potentially. We'd have to really measure it out.
No, because there's a trail on one side and a road on the other side.
That is true.
Right.
There is a trail over there.
In this particular case, you probably get 300, you probably overlap on your 300
probably
feet.
be fine.
But the point in principle, yes, you could have something that is long enough that you have one little person in the middle who has to have an open.
Yeah.
Which is kind of the case actually on the right side, the Foxwood Estates. The way the code's written, the homes in Canterbury, and I forget the name of the subdivision just across from Canterbury.
Bend.
Horseshoe Bend?
Horseshoe Bend.
They're allowed to have privacy fencing because those corridors are less than 300 feet and they're connected to public streets. But as you go north into the hollow, as we discussed with the Foxwood fence, they should have a 4-foot privacy, 2-foot open fence. So that's current code is just to say, we're good with that, how it is.
If they'd come and gotten a fence permit, that's what they would have been told they need to do. They did not get a fence permit, so we have an unauthorized fence that's here in this area.
So that was option 1, is just don't change the code, we'll leave it as it is.
Can I ask one more question?
Of course.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get my mind wrapped around this because I've been involved with these issues
Yes.
for years. So why would you want to build a non-privacy privacy fence? Because a 4-foot fence with just open area at the top doesn't really give you a lot of privacy, unless you're short like I am. But, I'm just curious. It seems like when people want a privacy fence, they want a privacy fence at least 6 foot tall.
Yes. I mean, most of the time when we get the trail fence, it's like this, where you have some amount of openness on top, but there's not just a wall going up to 6 feet. Most people want the privacy fences all the way up to 6 feet.
And the open areas, I understand, along the trails was to provide some sort of security so that someone that's running or walking along the trail, it's open enough that people around can see if there's a problem.
Or
Right?
also not
Yes.
feel like you're just in an enclosed trail walking. It was also more
Right.
feel of that open feel.
So why do you need an open fence behind your house so you can peer on your neighbors to see if everything's okay? I just don't understand some of the code. Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
That was just the first option.
That was just option one. Option two was to remove the language of open space. So we don't care about open space areas, so like the viewpoint type things where there's no trail, and just focus on trail corridors. And then we add in a definition, to Scott's point, of what a trail corridor is. And it's defining something as property that the city owns that has an existing trail or is planned to be to have a trail in the future. And we exclude out the trails that are along our roads, where we might have like a multi-use path along a road. So this would be, so returning those same two examples, option two would say, viewpoint, you could have a privacy fence because yours is just open space. We're not planning to put a trail in that area. Foxwood and Canterbury, you still need to have open style fences on the top because we're planning to put a trail there at some point in the future. It's a trail corridor. Any question on option two? This is the one the Planning Commission recommended.
So there was a referendum 4 years ago not to surplus any developed trails. And I meant to go back and check this. Did that also include any possible trail corridors?
That one was, I think it was specific to the Wimbledon trails.
Well, it was because the people in that neighborhood didn't like the trail behind their
Yes.
home, so they surplused it, and then we had a referendum,
Yep.
then voted on it. But did that referendum also cover planned trail corridors?
In that case, no, because there were no additional planned corridors in that area that were designated for sale.
Okay,
don't-
so that referendum was just specific
It was
to
really
that
just specific
neighborhood.
to those existing trails.
But I thought it had, it's kind of like federal district courts now making rules for the whole country. I thought it applied to the whole city.
Well, I mean, it was very specific to that decision. I think the council saw that as, and you were on the council, so obviously I don't want to speak for you, but
Sure.
kind of saw it as, this seems to be what Highland wants, is to preserve these trails, but to what scope that's an existing trail versus a trail corridor that we might use in the future, that's still an open question that we still deal with on a case-by-case basis. I mean, we just had the general plan discussion. We talked about that potential trail kind of going northeast from like 6,000 west into Alpine, and discussion was, should we plan for that or just not plan for that?
Right.
So it's still, we kind of handle those on a case-by-case basis.
So this is diverging. I'm sorry, I've been trying to think, I've been thinking a lot about this.
Yes.
So, do we have, and this is a question for Jeff and our city engineer, do we have we have a master plan for potential trails. Do we have a master plan with prioritizing when we build those trails? So right now, we got funding from Mountain Lands to build the trail down from Mitchell Hollow to 9600 through the hollows. And, and we have, when development comes through, obviously Foxwood has connected this trail that goes into the city center, and then it can connect going south on a trail corridor. I guess, do we have a priority, like, would it make sense if we're going to make these people take this fence down and change it, that we actually build that trail, even though we don't have easements to do it? I mean, what's the priority on that trail? Or are we going to build it in 20 years, maybe?
I don't know of any prioritization of this particular trail. I know some of the other ones it pertains to development, what developments are going on at the time and in those areas. So we kind of piggyback onto that. A proposed trail alignment corridor may sit for several years until the development helps it to be developed. But this one in particular, the one in Canterbury, I don't know if there is not a timeline to when this one would be completed, because it's not necessarily connecting to another trail unless we design a trail that goes down to the bottom and eventually connects into the Dry Creek lake area down in the bottom. But that, to my knowledge, there's no plans of that currently designed.
So we don't have any easements. Is it the Workman property, Mayor?
Yeah, this is the old Workman property.
So we don't have an easement up there to connect that trail, but this trail could be a blind stub and connect in the trail that goes through Foxwood and down south, right? And
Yes.
that goes to the Murdoch Canal Trail.
Yes, it could. The city does own a significant amount of that property now with this development of Foxwood, up to where we have our sewer line going across that wash. We do now have ownership of that, so we own significantly more than we did, but we don't own the entire thing.
Okay, thanks.
The one thing, I don't know if, we don't hear that Lehigh is doing a lot at Dry Creek Lake, but our eyes are telling us different. And if you've ever went down in that trail area, the way that they've done the trail on the east side, where they were going to kind of put a bridge across, that is not. It goes way back up in, almost to where our pipe is at for our sewer line. And so they're showing their trail. It's almost just barely off this picture here where their trail is coming in for Dry Creek Lake. I always get worried about, like, let's assume, Scott, we wanted to surplus this. Going, well, in 20 years, it might be a viable option to connect a trail here because Dry Creek Lake has been developed in a way. I'm just saying that, but I think your question is, I don't think we have a prioritization. That would be a good thing to do, is prioritize which ones do we want to finish. Because like right now, we acquired the property over here off Alpine Highway to be able to connect the Murdoch Trail and to be able to connect our city center trail. We don't have that. We haven't went and sought funding or done anything to do that. I think that's some of your questions.
Well, yeah, that's my question. I'm just thinking, I think trails are important to the citizens of Highland, but I think when you come out with certain rules and you're going to, because if we pass this regardless, what you're doing is they're saying to Foxwood, you've got to fix your fence. So my question is, if you have to fix your fence, are we then obligated to build that trail even if it's a stub? In all due fairness, it seems like, I'm just talking about fairness here, because if we have no plans to build that trail and it's not a priority and it's never going to happen, then that's where I kind of struggle a little bit.
I think we've already crossed that bridge. We're not asking them to fix that fence.
Well, if you pass some of these options, I think you have to go back, don't you?
No, I don't think we can.
Where are we at, Rob?
We've told them.
We have.
What is
I'll
the
let you do
communication? Now, what's the communication with Foxwood Estates?
There has not been much communication back from the council's prior discussion. We kind of just let it lie.
Well, because you pointed it out to me, Councilmember Campbell, right, that they had not built the proper type of fence, right? We called them and asked them why, and the developer claimed, well, because it's not really a trail corridor. You're never really going to be able to build a trail there, so it should be fine. Then when we came back and had that conversation with you, you said, let's talk about it in the future. So I didn't want to tell him one way or the other what the council was going to do. So originally we had kind of gotten the direction from council of tell them it's okay. But then we felt like we got other direction, and so we held off.
I'm thrilled to hear that, to be honest with you. So I would like to see it changed. We have it open for a reason. And I know for a fact, if any of those three families asked for a fence, we would tell them, you can't have a privacy fence.
But this whole discussion doesn't strike me as germane to the issue at hand, because there's nothing we're going to do tonight that is going to make our rules more, none of the options that we're considering will make our rules more stringent.
Yeah. So.
But anytime you have a rule, you have to kind of follow through it and enforce it. So we've got lots of rules in the city. I think we had an example last week where I visited a home, and they obviously didn't meet setback rules on something they had, and I'm not going to, point fingers or anything, but, I think there's a general feel sometimes that people kind of ignore the rules more than they should. And so I'm just, if we make rules, I think we need to have some sort of plan or prioritization so that we can enforce those rules and not leave it just all to Rob, because I think you have a hard time doing that because there's so many different things. So, okay, I just had questions. I just wondered how that ramifications were.
So what you're saying is option number 2, and maybe you can kind of share with what the planning commission, because I think there was a motion one way, there's a motion another way. But let's go through your options, and then you can share how the planning commission went back and forth.
So option 1 again no change. Leave it as it currently is. Option 2 is this, where we just take out the open space language and focus on trail corridors. Option 3 is we really tightly define what a trail corridor is to something of where a trail exists, essentially. Not where we've planned one, not where a plat says, reserved for future trail, just if we've built a trail there, that's a trail corridor. So under option 3, all of this could be private because the trail at Foxwood is not a built trail. And Viewpoint, again, is just open space. And then during the Planning Commission meeting, a fourth option was proposed, which was just remove all regulation about fences near trails and open space entirely. Just strike out that whole section, let people build privacy fences near any trail or open space. Just stop regulating. So, summary, option 1, leave code as is. 2, remove open space, but focus on trail corridors, which are existing and planned trails. Option 3 is just focus on existing trails. And option 4 is get rid of all the fence regulations for trails and open space. The Planning Commission held a public hearing. We had no written comments. We did have one public comment in favor of maintaining the open fencing requirement near trails, either option 1 or 2. It was Wes, and he sent an email earlier today that kind of summarized his thoughts, which is, again, he kind of supports option 1, but option 2 was the compromise of, well, if we're going to kick out something, open space is less important than trails. Don't mean to speak for him. Hopefully I've summarized his discussion well enough. The Planning Commission then discussed all the options. Out of the option 4, their initial vote was for option 1, meaning don't change the code, leave it as it's currently regulated, and that failed. It was 3-4. Then the second vote was for option 2, which is don't regulate near open spaces, just focus on trails, whether existing or planned. That one passed 5-2. I think one Planning Commission member voted against it because they wanted option 1, meaning keep the current regulations. The other Planning Commissioner voted against it because they wanted no regulation. So the 5 was kind of the compromise that reached the recommendation. So we have motions, and I'm sorry it's kind of confusing, but I wanted to give you the options. Staff doesn't have a particular recommendation. This is very much a policy-driven item. So we want to just implement whatever the council decides is appropriate for Highland. This is also is a public hearing, as it is a development code regulation.
So we go ahead and go to public hearing, then we'll come back to our discussion. So at this time, I'm opening up public hearing on item number 3B, which is the trail corridor and open space fencing. Public hearing is now open.
I'm Liz Rice. This was last time, right? And I was at another meeting. So when I have been with constituents in open trail places, they've already put up a full 6-foot fence, leaving these open orphan spaces orphan. And I can take you to it. I don't know how to explain it, but there's a big triangle spot. They didn't have the 4 feet at top, so I'm assuming that's under old code. That's kind of what I'm worried about, is that when you go changing it, and I don't know if I really care, it's just there's some spots like that we get into some muddy waters there, in my opinion. So the other thing is, and Scott, Dr. Smith, you nailed it. When I was on the Planning Commission, one of the reasons we had the open part at the top was security. People walking down a trail or down that area, because you get boxed in and a woman could be grabbed or, the worst could happen. So that was our thinking at the time, and that's why we put that in those many years ago. So I just thought I would clarify that. But in the actual open space areas, I'm kind of worried about making more orphan space orphan that way. That's all. Thanks.
Anyone else like to come up and address the council? Seeing none, we close the public hearing, bring it back to council. Now, actually, I guess I need to ask, there was an email from a resident, but it was a planning commissioner, Wes Warren. Was that need to be, I don't think that needed to be read, right?
He didn't, as I recall, didn't ask for it to be read. His comment I kind of summarized. It's the same as from Planning Commission.
Okay. I just want to make sure, because it didn't say read it, but that said fence code action item 3B, but I don't think it went into other detail. So council, we have a couple options in front of us. Is there one that you'd like to discuss further a little bit as an option, or option 1's no change, leave as is. 2's the recommendation of the Planning Commission. 3 is regulating only existing if they have an existing trail, and 4 is remove all fencing regulations.
I'm sorry.
I'm going to go with 4.
Go ahead.
You want 4?
Yeah, let's just do it. Okay, Doug.
I have a question about the open space. And apologies, it didn't occur to me until I was looking at the images again on the screen. Do we know if we have any places where we have meaningful lengths of open space that is not trail, is not planned trail, and is less than 30 feet in width?
Oh.
Because I was saying, are we regulating something that's not really a problem?
Yeah.
And again, apologies, it would have been a lot more convenient if I'd asked you ahead of time so you could look, but it just didn't occur to me.
My thought comes back to the original purpose of why did we have that open space and the trails with the 2 feet open, and Liz hit it exactly right. And I'm very concerned that we change it and create corridors that are less safe. I mean, I don't have in my mind all the different options of where the open space is and where that would occur, but with a very mere potential that it could occur, I think we need to avoid that. We have that open 2-foot area for a reason, and I don't think the reason's changed. It's safety, it's visibility. If we make this change and we then end up with something that's over 30 feet long and it's a corridor and it's got privacy fences on both sides, it's not as safe, period. It's just not as safe. So I support option number 1. And again, I hate to go against what the Planning Commission, I take that very, very, very seriously. But on this one, I take safety more seriously.
Well, and Ron, you need to realize this was a 3-4 vote. So when you talk about Planning Commission, one Planning Commission...
It was 5-2 on 2.
Yeah, on 2, but there...
Oh, the
first
first
motion was to make no change. Right. I'm just saying, and I'm not saying that, you know, but you didn't have a unanimous vote of a Planning Commission saying this is... No, that's right. There were some concerns here. You can see that there was not a... there was one vote away from saying, hey, we're going to do option 1. They'd probably compromised to get to option number 2 to get one of the votes. And we'll be interested to see where we come as a council.
Well, so far we've got 2 different opinions, right?
So I would agree with Ron that we should leave the code where it is, and not for only the reasons he said, but also just because, not just for safety, but I think that open space was designed the way it is for a reason, and it's not just about the privacy of the homeowners. It's about people who bought into that community for the idea of the open space. And if you change the way that looks like substantially, then I think that it is maybe not fair to the residents who bought into that subdivision as an open space subdivision, knowing what it is.
So are you for option 1 then, Brittany?
Leave it like it is.
I'm fine with that also. But I'd like to hear from Scott.
Thank you.
I just want to see if we agree.
Okay, so let me tell you where I'm coming from a little bit. So I served on the Open Space Committee for a number of years. We talked about these issues repeatedly. And there were 2 main complaints that were brought to the committee, and of course these were people that were disgruntled in many cases. One issue is they didn't feel like the trails themselves were maintained. And that's always been an ongoing problem. And, you know, we have limited resources, we have limited staff, and we're never going to maintain them actually the way the neighborhood would like it. And so that's why maintenance agreements came out and some of these things. Now, you know, for example, I brought up the Caddy Lane Trail many times, and that's beautifully landscaped, but the people along it did it, and the city's done their part on the other side of the trail by the golf course. But that was a big complaint. The second complaint is, and I've said this many times, the open space neighborhood concept was a good concept. I like the open space. The problem was design. And many people that came to the committee did not like trails behind their homes because of privacy issues. So it's one thing to have a trail in front of your homes or access like that. It's a difference, but it's in your backyard. And so that bothered a lot of people. And so then, we came with, let's talk about some privacy fences. If it's 30 foot wide, which we happened in Wimbledon. Now, what you have a lot of times in these neighborhoods is you have the open space concept neighborhoods, which we eliminated that code 15 years ago, but it's the gift that keeps giving, I think. And the problem is these new developments are not open space neighborhoods, but they line up against, like Foxwood, against an open space neighborhood. So then we say to the people along the west side of that area, you can't have privacy fences, because someday in the future, we don't know when it's going to be, because it's already been 20 years, we may build a trail there. But we may never build the trail there. And so I have kind of a hard time with that, because I believe the open, and Liz explained it, the open part was designed mainly for security reasons, and mainly for security reasons along the trails. So I've never understood, and I think some of the examples are helpful here in Viewpoint, and I understand where Brittany's coming from, but I've never understood why you can't have privacy fences in your backyard in an open space if you want it. So why build the fence if half of it's open? I just have a hard time struggling with that. So I guess if I voted for one, I'd probably lean towards what the Planning Commission said, but I think this is written different than the Planning Commission, because I thought they said they'd eliminate the open space part, right? Because this still reads to me like you're talking about doing the open space. It says, I move the City Council adopt the ordinance submitting fence regulations for fences adjacent to open space and trails.
It's more the ordinance itself takes out the open space.
Right.
And
okay, I just wanted to clarify that.
No, it's a good clarification. We'll
okay.
Go back to...
Because I'm not sure we need to, to me, there's lots of open space in the city that are not in open space neighborhoods. So I think it's a definition problem with open space in my mind.
Yes.
So I like the security, but when I was looking through the ordinance again, we said, okay, if it's a 30-foot wide corridor and you can look up to a street, you can have privacy fences. And the example is on the east side of Wimbledon, where there's a privacy fence on the development of the hollows. They're putting these beautiful concrete walls as they develop. On the other side, we've allowed privacy fences for those who so desire if they buy the property. But when I looked at it, it says you have to be able to see down that corridor and have a park and a road on each end. Well, that's not true in Wimbledon. You have a road up at one end, but not a park at the other that I'm aware of.
That's because it's 30 feet wide, right?
Yeah, but it says in the 30-foot wide code, it says that has to be true too. So I was curious about that, and that's a tangent off of what we're doing, but I wondered about that.
Part of that is also the question, and this is also something we could address, is what do we define as a park or an open, like visible from a public space? Because there's areas, say Winter Meadows, where it becomes wide. There's no play structure or anything, but it's kind of park-like. Like you could go, toss a ball around there. Does that count as a park where it's a good, several, maybe it's a quarter acre of little open space there, but there's no park amenities? Does that count as a park or not? We haven't ever defined that. And that's kind of where Wimbledon, like there's areas where it becomes bigger in the corners and where the trails intersect, and I have erred on the side of where I'm not quite sure. I err on the side of what people ask for their application. So,
sure. So I guess if I supported the Planning Commission on this, as I brought up before, I'd like to see a prioritization of future trails, because we have a lot of dead-end trail corridors in the city. It'd be nice to know what our plans are for those. And some of those we may never have any plans for. In this particular one, west of Foxwood, perhaps. And I think from what Ron said, and he's met with some of the neighbors there, do they all want that trail? They use it as a trail. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So if the city came in with construction and put an asphalt trail in there next week, they would like it? Is that your impression?
Yes. But they also would like privacy fences, which we would not allow them to do.
So I'm sorry, this is at the council.
Yeah.
So, the question is, like, when you look at Foxwood, let's assume we say, hey, you need to keep the 2 feet open. If we say no one's walking there, how does the 2 feet open really affect them if it's a 6 or 2 feet? I mean,
It's the open field
Correct.
that was part of
no,
the reasons
what I'm saying
why.
is, if we're also worried they need to have privacy, they have privacy because it's not
There
a
were
completed
people
trail.
walking in
until
that
the
area.
until the trail gets completed, then we want it open fill. But when it's, let's just we require it now. I'm just trying to think, if we require it now and there's not a trail there, they still have privacy because no one's there. Does that make sense? And so they can have it open the 2 feet, but no one's walking back there. But then when we do put the trail in, the fence is already there. You understand what I'm saying?
Which creates a problem.
Correct. That's what I'm just trying to understand. Okay, so the planning commission recommendation was number 2, but to remove the word open space, is that correct?
That's the difference.
It changes it from trails and open space to trail corridors.
Trail corridors, and we actually had a definition of what a trail corridor is. Responding to your earlier question, Doug, on a very quick review, I'm not sure how many little open space areas are left that don't have a trail and are more than 600 feet. So it may be that it would be a change that would add clarity to what a trail is, but doesn't actually change how the regulation applies because we don't have those open space areas left.
So I guess my next question, I'm sorry I'm asking a lot. I've just
No,
been
it's
involved with this over the years, and so I'm trying to figure it out. Because this is probably, I don't know, the 6th or 10th time we brought this up.
Fences keep bringing me brought up for some reason.
So I guess the bottom line is this, at least because this was all instigated by Foxwood to a large degree, right? So if we approve option 1, 2, or 3, oh no, 1 and 2, okay, but not 3 or 4.
Correct.
We do options 1 or 2, and then are we going to call Mr. Train and say, you need to fix your fence?
That
I
would
think
be
I
the
would.
code.
If now that we've gotten a very formal direction and we even tried a code change to address it, and if the council still holds with that, I would call them up and say, you need to.
We need to remember we have an
Cut out part of the
applicant
fence.
that didn't apply. I mean,
They didn't
this is
apply.
we have a fence that's sitting there that doesn't have an application that, we're trying to apply and be lenient to someone that didn't apply for a fence permit that knew they needed to. And I'm just, and I like Todd like everyone else, really. I mean, he's been he was great here at the city, but he knew. Yeah. And he's just trying to, he doesn't want to abide by the policy because he didn't like it.
Okay,
Which is
so
wrong.
yeah, go ahead, Ron.
I think we have to hold him accountable for that. And I called the fence company that installed that fence and said, will that fence, do you have to rip it out? What do you have to do? He said, we have to take the caps off of the pillars and pull it out and recut it or replace it with a 4 and 2. He said, it's not a big deal. The contractor's going to tell you it's a big deal. But he said the reality is it's not that big a deal. Now, realize he's looking for a little more money. So
Right.
I'm sure he's telling me what he thinks I want to hear. But his point was it's not destroying. Those panels will be used someplace else. It doesn't
Or they
destroy
could
the
cut the
panel. The pillars stay exactly where they're at. You're just taking the caps off and Now, having said that, they did cement those caps in, and he said usually it's just siliconed on and you just have to cut through it, but I checked it, and these are cemented in.
Right.
So it will be a little bit of chipping and stuff.
So unless the mayor, do you have a concrete wall around your place? So I'm probably the only one up here that's put a concrete wall in, and Olympus did it. I did it in my grandparents' home. It's an expensive proposition. And that doesn't justify the fact he didn't get a fence permit or didn't do it right in the first place. But I guess if we did this, I would feel better about it if we could say, we're planning on building this trail soon and have a time. Because you could say, you could build that stub of a trail, even though it doesn't connect north. You could build a stub of the trail to bring people down to the trail that goes through Foxwood and that goes farther south. So I just think if we have no plans in the future to ever build this trail, yet we're going to make someone incur a lot of expense, and yes, they were wrong, but that is expensive. And then my question is you, Ron, you also said that the neighbors there would like a privacy fence. So how are they going to they've got a privacy fence now at the end of their maintenance agreement. So if we cut the top part out and make it not a privacy fence now and never build the trail, how are they going to respond to that? I guess I'd just like to understand the ramifications.
Yeah, and I talked in theory to them, and there's only one, by the way, that really talked through all the way that we're discussing.
Sure.
And when he said I would like the trail, he made it clear that I would like it to go all the way down to Dry Creek. Just having a dead-end trail, I don't think he was interested in that.
But it's not going to go to Dry Creek
No, it
yet.
won't. It's going to be a dead-end trail.
But it could be a dead end on the north, but it could hook into the trail through Foxwood and going south, right?
Yes.
To Murdoch Canal Trail. Right.
Yeah, well, it does already.
Yeah, I could. I mean, if you finished it, it would be a connection.
Yeah.
Okay. I've said my deal.
I'm inclined toward option 2 simply because I don't think that it does define trail corridor better. I don't think that when I asked the question, it was kind of to confirm what my sudden intuition was, that it's not really going to affect things because we don't have open space like that, and that it removes the problematic open space term, which, Scott, as you pointed out, I think rightly.
How do you define
it? Isn't defined anyplace.
Okay, so I've heard both. The council would like to stick with option 1, no amendments, and I've heard option 2 with removing the open space, similar to what, or exactly what the planning commission recommended.
And I heard 3 people in favor of option 1, so I'm going to sit back and not make a motion and let one of them.
I was going to say that. I'd heard that the very first, so let's have a motion and then we'll see where it goes. Okay, where's is someone ready to make a motion? Is anyone going to make a motion?
Rob, technically speaking, if we want option 1, do we need to make a motion? I mean,
No, but it's nice for staff to know that you made a final decision.
That we made a decision? Okay.
Just the record
I
going
move
forward.
that we adopt option 1, which is to leave the trail code exactly as it exists.
Which is a denial of any changes, correct?
Well, but it's not just the trail corridor. You're talking about fencing and open space.
Okay,
We
so-
don't have
so
that
you see
defined.
So option 1 is that you move the city council deny the changes to the code regarding fence near trails and open space, correct?
Yep.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second by Brittany. Any further discussion or clarification? Okay, we will then go to vote on option number 1. That passes 3-2. Okay, we'll now move on to the next item. If it's okay, council, it's because sometimes we start at 6, and maybe some residents aren't aware that we have kind of changed that. We do have a resident come in. Were you here to address the council at 7 o'clock? The gentleman here in the second back?
He's
Yeah,
here
were you
for the
on
next
a-
item.
I'm sorry, what?
He's here for the next item.
Okay, I just want to make sure. I just get nervous that sometimes we moved our timing. I saw him walk in right at 7, and I thought, did we have a resident that thought we started at 7? I was just trying to be a little sensitive. Okay, we'll now move to item number 3C, which is going to be the Highland Town Center Lot 3 site plan and architectural review. This is a land use, and we'll turn some time to Rob to go through that.
Almost the last time you get to hear from me tonight. So this is the last lot in our town center commercial area up there. We actually have one lot left to be developed. That's kind of near Ace. There's an empty lot over there north of Arctic Circle.
Oh yes,
The old,
Taco Amigo.
yes, way back when.
No, that's not Taco Amigo.
Yeah, they still own it.
It was what was proposed way back when. So it's the last undeveloped lot in town center overall.
Right,
This is
Taco
the last
Amigo.
lot in this area over here. It's
And if
lot
anyone has
3.
contacts with Taco Amigo, I think we'd be welcoming a Taco Amigo.
I know the story there, but.
I know you
okay.
do. It's the family
Yeah,
down there.
It's not a good story.
Okay.
Since we're talking about the last lot in the town center area, just to clarify that my understanding is correct, and David, maybe this is a question for you. I don't know, you or Rob. That parcel that we're talking about, the Taco Amigo, It has nothing to do with the Town Center Action Fund. Is that?
They did not participate in that big development agreement process we went through 20 odd years ago.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. So it's for a proposed restaurant with a pickup window. The zone allows for drive-through restaurants. We feel those are essentially the same, except how it gets developed. They're asking for both the site plan and the building approval. So this is just a comparison of the current versus proposed. And the thing I kind of want to highlight with this is it impacts both Lot 3 and Wendy's.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
So if you can look on here, you see
And Lot
Wendy's property line actually kind of goes here. So all of that parking that exists around that kind of east-west island is technically Wendy's parking. Everything on the other side is Lot 3. And I calculated what is currently required and provided in that area. You'll see currently we have about 27,500 square feet of buildings, which would require 110 parking spaces. We have 167 currently provided in there. That includes 14 parking spaces on this Lot 3 that have just been provided but aren't actually associated with any building or use. Every space, when it got developed, provided extra parking, except for Myers, which provided less parking than required, and I can't quite figure out why.
That's weird.
So the proposed parking, you'll see now Lot 3 is now being proposed with a new building, 2,600 square feet, which would require 11 new parking spaces. Wendy's will end up with 2 additional parking spaces, going up from 24 with 10 extra to 26 with 12 extra.
How did you calculate Wendy's when it's a 90-degree, just the first 3 or 4 down?
So they can park in front of Mobeda's too?
Yes, this is all shared parking. They have reciprocal
So that's the
parking
red
agreements in
line there?
place.
That's considered Wendy's?
Yeah. So you can kind of see, here's the property line, and that red line you see through there is kind of where the counting of the parking spaces followed.
Got
So
it.
even though the property line kind of goes over inside some of their parking spaces over here, that's counted for Mobeda's, but Wendy's gets to count these 2 parking spaces, even though they're just partially in Lot 3.
Oh,
Go
okay.
back one more, Rob. And so on the map, so you can see even though it only looks like this is Wendy's, it actually currently is this as
Yes,
well.
that's
Right,
right.
and so that's why it's okay to count down that way
Got
as
it.
well. It's
Okay.
already being counted.
Okay, very good.
The majority
And
of
it is
Wendy's-
their property. I mean, it's Lot 2.
Yep.
It's part of Lot 2.
The majority of Wendy's parking is actually provided across their access aisle and their drive-through aisle. So that actually is not changing. They're actually getting more parking spaces right in front of Wendy's. Oh, good.
I'm sorry, could you go back to that shot again, the one back? I just want to, this just happens to be a good image of it, so wanted to call attention to folks that if you notice the drive-through lane around Wendy's, that they have striped crosswalks. and that doesn't show up on any of the others. That's something that I want to add as a stipulation. But since we could clearly see what it looks like on the Wendy's side here, I just wanted to bring it up at this point.
For the applicants, they want striping painted onto where the crosswalks are. I figured that wouldn't be an issue.
While we're on this slide, that area where that truck is interesting because that's where the loading and unloading is happening in reality. It shouldn't be there. It should be at the lower left corner there, but it's there. It looks like we're cutting in. If those trucks park like that one, there's not much space for cars to get by that loading zone. And loading, by definition, means you got product coming off of a truck onto a dolly and moving and going north, going east, going west, going south. It's going all different directions. And so I just am feeling some concern that if we don't enforce the actual zoning parking area, which we can't because it's not big enough, and I understand that, but it seems unsafe knowing we're going to have parking there. Our picture literally shows a truck being unloaded there.
Two comments to that, and obviously we'll have the applicant respond whenever you want, really. First, it's all private, so the city doesn't regulate parking in there at all. That is all privately owned parking spaces, so it's up to them to manage how they handle it. Secondly, assuming that does continue, we have increased circulation to the site because now you can, before you'd have to, this was your only option, is to drive past there.
Yes.
Now we will have other ways of getting around there, so it does add more circulation in and through the site, even if people are not parking or loading where they should be.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Now, again, not ideal, but I think we lost the ideal solution just because of how this site got developed kind of piecemeal without kind of an overall master plan. So we're doing the best with what we have. So speaking of parking, again, even if we discounted every existing parking space that's there, they're still providing enough parking for their building with the new asphalt that's going in. So based on our code, they have provided sufficient parking. We end up with 57 stalls more than we need. And by need, I mean more than our code need, not what we actually need in that area, because I think we need more. The other hopeful benefit of this is their site plan, I think, really addresses the parking on Town Center Boulevard, that angled parking we have as you come south towards the splash pad. A lot of people park near Toscana and Burt Brothers, but not a lot use that first row of parking on the north side near SR 92. Hopefully, this will encourage people, and maybe we can get some employees to park over there to, I mean, if I'm driving into the Mobetas that's supposed to go in here and I see a lot of terrible parking inside there, I'd rather park on Town Center Boulevard and walk over and then leave that way. So hopefully this will encourage more parking there. We have some commercial design standards for here that actually encourage the parking lanes to resemble the grid pattern, which it's really hard to see on that screen because they did it in yellow for some reason. But our design standards also called out Wendy's circulation as very poor for kind of obvious reason. Our fire marshal looked at this and much prefers the circulation we have through here. Going back to here so you can see. Currently, if an emergency happens in Wendy's, anyone leaving has to go out through here. And also, our ambulances and fire trucks have to go in the exact same way, which really restricts what they can do. And we can, at most, maybe get one fire apparatus in there. It's really hard to get a lot of vehicles. Our fire marshal said with this approach, we now can stack vehicles here while letting people get out in other ways. So he very much supported removing this kind of landscape meeting and adding more circulation through the site. Yes.
Whenever you're ready, if you would go forward just one slide. Ron, with regard to your concern about that truck, would it, and perhaps this is eventually a question for you to address as well, that would it make sense from a safety and convenience standpoint to require the curbing on the west to be red painted as well as the curbing on the east right there in that area where we saw the truck?
I think that would be good to request. It's not owned by them because that's Myers' property, but our fire marshal could probably look at that and say, no, we do need to maintain this access clear, and say we need to red stripe these curbs, and the fire marshal has a lot of authority that way. So we could have him look at kind of the other parking and existing curbing and say, are there other areas where we need to red stripe it for no parking?
That's a great idea.
Okay, Rob, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay. So the big discussion we had before on this, and and I'm excited about Mobetas coming and different things, and I think this is just a tricky area to plan. I think you've done the best you can, and the company certainly has. Draw an arrow showing how the traffic's going to flow through the pickup area and where they end up, because it looks like they end up in the parking lot. Just show me where you think they'll be driving.
They do end up in the parking lot. So it's a little bit of a precursor to answering that question. You'll remember when you first saw this a few months ago, the lane kind of came out here, and you had to do a really sharp curve.
Right.
As they re-engineered that and looked at it, they got rid of that little buffer because it just wasn't working in terms of circulation. Chris, our city engineer, prefers the current option, which is just as you come in either from either side, you funnel up into the drive-through, and then you leave out. You'll see up on the north side here, where I just kind of covered it up, it does bend a little bit. The intent is to encourage people coming out of the pickup lane to turn left. And
But
then
they
get out of that
could
way.
turn right.
They can.
And
They
then
could
that goes
go.
into the traffic coming
Which
into
that
Wendy's.
conflicts with Wendy's traffic up there, which
Part
is the
of-
problem we had before.
Yes, and part of the goal of this is by changing this from a one-way in and out where you'd have to circle all the way around the Wendy's drive-through to leave, by making those kind of access lanes here, this becomes more of a two-way drive aisle up until this point where it just becomes the drive-through. So hopefully we minimize the conflict, but there will be some conflicts of people going to Wendy's versus people turning out of here. The Planning Commission did recommend that they consider installing signage, especially at kind of the exit saying, left turn, or have a stop sign to, give people the heads up of don't just pull straight out into this area and be
But
careful.
they can go to Wendy's on these vertical accesses going up that's new.
Yes,
So,
people will go into Wendy's coming from this side.
Yeah. So I think it kind of mitigates that problem.
How many cars can they stack in that drive-through?
4 or 5?
It's like 7.
7?
Yeah. It's pickup only, not a drive-through.
Do we want to have do we want to finish it and we'll have the applicant maybe come?
Yeah,
we
I'm
can ask-
almost done with the
well, in a second,
site
Richard,
plan
we'll have you come up.
requirements, then we'll have them address it.
Can I ask one more question?
Yes, of course.
So why do you assume that people will park on the town center boulevard? Because they're going to have to cross a lane of traffic, they're going to have to cross the pickup lane, and then they're going to have to, why would they do that?
So, unless you're parking in these, 6 stalls here, you'll have to cross some type of drive aisle. Either you're crossing this drive aisle here, or you're crossing it here or here.
Right.
The thought is, if you're driving and you see a bunch of cars, trying to go through Wendy's and here, why not just park here and walk into the door that's going to be right there?
So is that the front entrance?
I think the front they have entrances on each side into the dining area. So the kitchen's on kind of the north side where the pickup window is up here. So you can see there's a door there and a door here. So you can enter on each side of the building. So we're trying to get people to use both entrances.
Now, we have sidewalk all along, actually, I guess it's.
No, that's the drive.
Right? No, I guess it's all right here, right?
Yep, that's a
That's
10-foot wide
sidewalk.
sidewalk.
So you might get some that cross here. And is this sidewalk there?
They could cross there. There's going to be a little bit of a retaining wall. People will go wherever they want, though. So I wouldn't be surprised seeing people hop down and cross.
Well, yeah, if
through.
you're parking here, I don't know if they're going to come and go that way. Does that make sense?
Or would they go in the door?
They're going to come here and then come down to that.
Well, I said there's a retaining wall, like it drops down a bit. So what I think people will do is cut through here and make a little desire path to kind of go right there.
Will there be any signage to kind of direct people a little bit?
In terms of,
I mean, if you got a busy pickup lane, I just don't know why people would want to drive, try to run across with their kids.
Well, and we have
pickup is
DoorDash, we have the app wait. Is there areas here designated for DoorDash or app wait or anything that way?
I think their plan, I'll let them address it more.
Okay,
I think
when
their
it comes
plan
up
is to
time.
have, as you see with more restaurants now, the signs that are, pickup orders only, but that's not something the city particularly cares about as much, at least from my staff review. I think it's something to definitely ask them and have them address. Speaking of circulations, I wanted to hit on, they provided a traffic impact study they're showing a total of 250 daily average trips. 150 new trips, 100 pass-by trips, which are someone was going somewhere else and they decided to, Mobetta sounds great, let's go in there. And with a peak hour of 34 trips. Now, a lot of those peak hour trips can be handled by their new parking spaces and the town center parking, but not all of it. So there will be more parking used in the rest of the parking areas. The traffic impact study also did conclude that the pickup window would not really interfere with circulation, but also importantly, that a drive-through would not really function here, and that any future tenant of this space would have to agree to use the pickup window model, because there's just not enough room for the queuing given the limitations of the site. The final, I think, big point I wanted to hit on the site plan is the landscaping. So the code talks about 15% of the project area needs to be landscaped. So lot 3, if you look at it just on its own, doesn't hit that 15%. It's 12 to 14%, depending whether you count the sidewalks, which they're kind of allowed to do. But if you count the Wendy's site, which is also affected by this, they end up with like 26% landscaping, because we have the large kind of parkways areas on Town Center and SR 92. Given the language of project area, staff's comfortable counting that entire area, and we're also worried that if we require more landscaping in the lot 3, we're going to cut out more circulation and parking spaces, which we really need in that area. I think finally, just utilities, we looked through them all. We had some review comments, they're included in the packet. They've actually already resubmitted plans addressing these. We'll do a review of them, assuming we get an approval. Just clarifying some finer details, but most of these utilities are all private and internal. There's not a lot of changes to our utility system, and they'll have to get TSSD's approval for how they're going to connect to the sewer, because you have to install certain grease traps and things in order to connect. So that's all I have on the site plan, and we have the applicant here as well.
One quick question for you, Rob, and sorry, I meant to follow up afterward, or before the meeting. We had exchanged email about the drainage, and you said that we require a
stormwater maintenance agreement.
There you go. That is something that we will require without any specific action on. Yeah,
correct.
Okay.
It's part of our current standards and state law, I think.
Okay, other questions before we have the applicant come up? Okay, we'd like to invite Richard Mendenhall to please come up with WPI.
Just to address some of the questions that you've raised, could you go to the...
Richard, would you just state your name just so we can get it
Richard
on
Mendenhall with Highland Town Plaza. I'm the manager of that LLC. Can you go to the aerial that shows the truck parked on the road? So when this area began development, there's a covenants and restriction document that deals with the Myers Shopping Center. It crosses the street. It deals with the second office building back and the Goodyear tire store. So at the time, it was everything that was not residential but was intended to be commercial going forward. And it was all under one covenants document. Those areas really, since the advent of Town Center Boulevard, operate separately. We don't really have something that goes across the street and relates to each other other than architecturally and things. We've reached an agreement with Marsh Myers where we're going to terminate the old covenants document and create a new document that is just for the Myers area alone. So one of the things that we will be able to do is raise this issue and suggest that it was a concern to the council that you'd like to see restricted parking there, but we can implement that as a deed restriction in the covenants document and require that when trucks are making the deliveries, they need to use the delivery dock, not the driveway. He has the room to do that. That truck will fit into that area. It's just a function of convenience for drivers, on a rush schedule, and they park in random spots, right?
And
So
excuse me,
I think we can regulate
excuse me,
that.
just to make sure that I'm correctly understanding you. When you say the Myers side, you mean all the way over to
Yep.
Lot 3?
Yeah, all the way.
Okay, yep, okay.
From Town Center Boulevard all the way to the far west end where the Rocky Mountain Power and the city well is.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to make sure I was understanding correctly.
Yeah. So in any event, I think we can control that. We're prepared to go into that process with Marsh and get those documents in place. You know, so as soon as we're approved here, then we'll go right to work on that. Like I said, there are agreements where he's agreed to proceed in a dedicated fashion and work diligently to work that through to some conclusions. He has some things that he's concerned about as well. The traffic pattern on the exiting of the pickup lane, if you take the northbound lane closest to the new building, it's going to go up and it's going to go left across the inbound lane on the Wendy's.
Okay, if you touch the screen here, do you see that little green arrow? Okay, Rob's doing it.
Rob's got me. So there is already a northbound motion to create that circulation. So as vehicles...
That screen's not been working.
Okay, so as vehicles come out, we will encourage a left turn. We can post it as a stop sign, you know, say left turn, exit. But if they did this, they're not going to be doing anything that isn't already happening with the eastbound most lane. And the idea is that once you cross that line on the Wendy's site where you start entering the drive lane, the vehicles are going to wrap around and move over. So you're not going to really have to worry about the escape lane route going around because nobody's going to go in there who's not intending to go to the order window and then go to the pickup window, right? And the volumes that we're dealing with on these pickup lanes where we have built them and installed them are completely different than order and pickup. So when customers will order, if they're using their app or if they call in, the app will say, your order will be ready, at 5:25. When you arrive, please take a parking spot at a convenient location. We will text you or call you when it's time for you to enter the pickup lane to pick up your food. So as it relates to pedestrian flow from Highlandtown Plaza to the building, this is not a through lane where we'll have as fast a traffic. This is going to be relatively slow. People will be stopping at the window at the other end. I don't think there'll be problems with people using the new walkway and then coming due south on the front of the building, meaning the west side, or the street front side and then crossing to get to the dual doors on the dining room. So after we'd reviewed this with Hales and reviewed it with Wendy's and not only the Wendy's, but the franchisee, who's the Flynn Group, who has, one of Wendy's largest franchisees. These guys have a few thousand restaurants worldwide, so they have a lot of operating experience. Everybody was pretty comfortable that this was the thing that would provide the best function, the least burden, and the most improved circulation access, public safety, as well as just overall parking viability by increasing the ratios in relationship to the building sizes, right? So we're pretty comfortable that it's a good plan. Everybody's signing off on it who has a vested interest, and if the council's prepared to approve it tonight, we'll get after it and get it done.
So, can I ask a question?
Yep.
So this pickup lane, can we draw an arrow through? I'd like to know when they exit the pickup lane exactly where you're saying they go, because I'm hearing different things here.
Well,
do they go up into the in front of Wendy's and go around that way, or do they come down south, or?
Councilman Smith says, we'll put a sign there. You have a little bit of a hook on it, right? So it's going to be suggesting a left turn. It's going to be the left turn that will bring you down to Town Center Boulevard, which will provide you access to SR 92 or southbound Town Center Boulevard. So people are going to have a tendency to not go into Wendy's. If you're trying to go west, what is frequently done with customers who are familiar with the area is they're taking advantage of the mayor's new easement they got with Rocky Mountain Power to be able to go out to 5600 West and use the light for controlled access to SR 92. So there's really not something that encourages you to move into Wendy's to go out west. You'd be more inclined to say, I'm trying to just get to the main drive aisles, move to the west, or move to Town Center Boulevard, and then find the primary intersections to be able
But it is open, they could do that.
I'm not telling you cars cannot make that turn. It will be signed. Somebody can do that, but if they do it, there's no greater burden on the traffic flows than the normal northbound traffic in that two-way drive aisle. And they'll have to wait for cars to clear if somebody was trying to do a right-hand turn out, right? So if somebody's driving northbound in the east drive lane, they would have to stop and wait for cars to clear before they could make that turn.
Scott, this is what your concern is, right?
That's my concern there, because it seems like it's a head-on thing. So if they go south, I don't have any problem. If they can go north and go to the road, and if somebody's trying to enter into Wendy's, I just don't know why that's not a problem, but
Well,
apparently not.
If they're moving north in that same drive aisle and then make the turn out west in front of Wendy's, it's the same exact motion. I can't
Because
draw, but if you
one
do
thing
that
that took me a while to understand is Wendy's will now be two-way. Right, whereas right now in what you see on the picture, it looks like it's one way, right? But now you can, you can go both ways now in Wendy's. And so it's no different than anybody making a left-hand turn normally, right? Like think of it as like there's a stop sign here, they have to wait and make a left-hand turn, assuming nobody is coming eastbound.
But what we're worried about is that, right,
Yeah.
Scott?
Yeah, it just seems like you've got traffic coming against each other.
That lane,
potential.
the arrows will be redone, so you'll only have ingress on the south side of that drive aisle and only egress on the north side of that drive aisle, running east and west in front of Wendy's.
But you'll also have people backing out of those increased number of parking spots there as well.
Yeah, just like you do in all the other parking lots, they do back into the drive aisles associated with those parking stalls, right? So we don't see this as being any different than the parking lots anywhere else in the commercial development.
I mean, my main concern right now is we look at this parking lot currently as it sits, on the left, and it's full. You know what I mean? And now that we come at another commercial building, what have we kind of done parking-wise? Because right now we're struggling with parking.
Rob, this is something, though, if I read the packet correctly, that it has to be approved, right? There's not really a legislative component in this.
There's no legislative, this is an administrative decision, you are correct. And especially when it comes to parking, they've overparked the entire site. So it would be really hard to say they need to provide more or deny it because they don't have enough parking, because by our code they do. Even as a practical matter, we probably should have had them parked a lot more.
So, because what it kind of seems to me like is that it's going to end up being something that we need to approve because of what the rules are. And it seems like a business that we all want here in Highland, right? At least I do. I mean, it seems like this is going to be a little bit of a disaster.
So Richard,
the parking situation.
Is the plan to do dedicated areas for people to pull in to get DoorDash or to have dedicated areas for people to park? I mean, I've even started noticing that McDonald's is taking some of the parking. If you have an app, because what I see is going to happen, and this is common what I would do. I want to go to Mobetta's. I didn't order at home. Well, I can't go through the drive-thru, so I've got to go park in the parking lot, do my order online, and now I might be waiting 10, 15 minutes there. I mean, that's that compounding of the issue. Just, are you going to be having dedicated areas for, hey, if you are DoorDash, park here. If you are doing an app order, park here. If you're walking in, I mean, what's your plan on the parking?
We find that by trying to restrict it, we create more parking problems than we do by letting it just find its balance, is the way it works. So, for example, if you go to a shopping center like the Meadows or down into our project in Spanish Fork, Canyon Creek, we'll have tenants that require pickup areas, but we don't dedicate them to Ross or TJ Maxx or Home Goods. It's just short-term, pickup-only type parking. Mobetta's hasn't requested that, and in part because the pickup lane will deal with most of that traffic. So whether the DoorDash drivers find it more convenient to park on Town Center Boulevard, when we add I believe it's 13 stalls on Town Center Boulevard, which are virtually not used at all today. There's no way to get to Wendy's. There's no pedestrian access. There's a retaining wall that's about 3 or 4 feet at various levels. So we're now creating convenient access to the Wendy's and to the new proposed Mobetta's building, to where those parking ratios go up to about 11 stalls per 1,000 square feet of building.
But you're using the city property to do that.
But you're counting that in. Now, that's completely, I shouldn't say completely, but it's very underutilized today. So what we're doing is we're now putting that parking in a course of use where there will be demand for it or higher function. And our requirements by all our national tenants of this nature is 10 stalls per 1,000. They say that's fine. And what's happened with the post-COVID advent of DoorDash and takeout and not dining in is those trips. Mayor, you talk about going and saying, oh, I didn't order yet. Well, fine, park your car, you go in. It's going to take you 5-10 minutes to order and sit down and wait for your meal to be prepared. Then you'll spend 30 minutes in the dining room. So we get these 45-minute parking stays. But what we're finding is that with our tenants like Cubby's, up to 60% of the product is either takeout over the counter or through the window. So it's completely changed the metrics of what kind of parking requirements people are having today, and how much you really need for in-house dining, because it's a much higher percentage that actually leaves the property. So it's a quick stop, head home, rather than a park, stay, spend an hour for dinner. Does that make sense? And so we're really comfortable with the parking here. I think that Hales had looked at it very optimistically, as it has Wendy's and the franchisee, the Flynn Group. They're all saying we're fine, we're better than we were. We're utilizing parking that has not been accessible in the past. We have a much better circulation pattern. We can deal with emergency flow much better. If under the old plan, if some emergency vehicles pulled in and somebody's got a car that didn't start in the drive-through, you're stuck. You can't get around because it compresses to one lane by the time you go to get out, right? So this provides options to where we have multiple ways to circulate to and from the building, as well as to circulate around the building. And the only vehicles that should be going past that walkway that goes from the you see the line that goes from the handicap down to that landscape peninsula is drive-through traffic now, versus exiting traffic from a normal traffic pattern. You have to go through the drive lane to get out, and then you have to manage your traffic intent with the pickup window. And when people are saying my order's wrong, or I need more barbecue sauce with, or with my chicken nuggets, or whatever the case is, you know what I mean? It just causes a lot of congestion, which we hope that will completely eliminate that problem.
Can I say a couple things, Mayor? Mm-hmm. I'd just like to summarize things. I appreciate all the work that your company's done, and we appreciate new businesses in Highland. We're not trying to be difficult. We're just trying to think through.
Appreciate that.
As we represent the people, and I try to think. So I spend a fair amount of money in this at Myers and Creamworks and Cubby's and Wendy's, and I think and there's some on the council that spend a lot of time at Fizz. We won't. But at the same time, I appreciate all the work you've done. It's a difficult scenario, but I think you've come up with the best option, and I appreciate it. And so we welcome your business. We welcome we're not trying to be tough. We're just trying to anticipate issues, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What was the recommendation from the Planning Commission? What did they recommend here on this site?
They recommend approval, subject to essentially two stipulations. First was just that the final review comments from staff get addressed, which they've either resolved or will soon, shortly resolved. And then that they look at doing signage for this pickup window, both for the exit and potentially for the entrance, to inform people it's not a drive-through, it's a pickup only. So those were the two stipulations. Otherwise, they unanimously recommended this. And before we get to any kind of motion from the council, we also have to look at the building. So I just want to give you the heads
with the
up.
recommendations of the Planning Commission, were you agreeable to those recommendations?
Yeah, of course.
And would you have any objection to adding that striping on those two crosswalks that cross your pickup lane?
No.
Okay.
While we're talking about striping, I had a thought. If we're, being that Wendy's, and I apologize, Rob didn't know about this, so you didn't know about this. I just thought about it. If, people are parking here for Wendy's as well, does it make sense? Can we somehow give them a walkway this way as well, like striping, or is that an improper place to put it?
What we had planned is when you go to the right side of the two-way traffic in front of Wendy's, where we have the line across the road, Thomas, I think we were planning on a pedestrian walk cutting from that landscape island.
Right across here?
Yeah, yeah, there.
Okay. Oh, perfect. Okay.
Yeah, now that, other than that, then you'll you know, if you're walking up the drive aisles, having parked lower in the lot, then you'll just. That'll utilize that park. Yeah, then you'll stop, wait for the traffic to clear, and just cross the drive aisle in front of Wendy's.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, Rob, I think, is there anything else for the applicant we need to discuss, or have him come
Not
back
for the
up?
moment. Let's go to the building, and then we'll invite you back up for the building. A little bit shorter on the building. You've kind of seen the concept earlier. It's mostly the same. I went through kind of so this building, Town Center Commercial has a 40-foot building height restriction measured from back of curb of Town Center Boulevard, which actually sits up a foot or two more, even higher maybe, from the actual site. So the building will be well below that. There's a list of prohibited roof and material designs. They haven't done any of those. Kind of the biggest thing that came up with this is we have a requirement in our code that 50% of the first floor facade facing Town Center Boulevard has to be architectural stone or rock. I asked that they incorporate that on all four sides of the building, because all four sides are going to be seen from drivers. And they've been willing to do that. They measured it from the tenant space, but this is what the buildings end up looking like. There's a lot more stone. We have the nice kind of wood canopies, the various architectural materials. All in all, staff likes this. We think it meets the design requirements of the code and what we need to see. Here's more of the elevations and kind of the footprint there.
Yeah, it's nice.
I think it'll match well with what we have in terms of the Cubbies building and the UPS Fizz building as well.
Let me just look at this. Let's assume this restaurant wanted to condense down and they only going to do pickup. They're not going to have a sit-down area. Is this showing that this could be converted in also to another space? You understand what I'm saying, that this could be a two-tenant building?
We're not showing that. I mean, they only have, I think they might have an employee entrance on the other side, but the main entrances are on the south side, so you don't have like a unit storefront type thing. We haven't seen building plans yet, but it's not been really designed for multi-tenants. So again, Planning Commission recommended approval of this unanimously. So just as kind of a summary, there's no public hearing or notice required for this. It's an administrative land use approval, and we believe that it generally, both the site plan and the building architecture, conforms to city code with those two conditions I mentioned earlier. Welcome to invite the applicant up to talk about the building architecture if you'd like.
Any question on the building architecture?
None.
Okay. Is there other questions you have for staff or the applicant before we need to go to the motion? Seeing none, let's go ahead and let's post a motion up.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the City Council adopt the proposed findings and approve the Highlandtown Plaza Lot 3 site plan and building architecture, subject to 3 stipulations. The 2 stipulations recommended by staff, and an additional, which is that pedestrian crosswalks across the pickup lane will be striped.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion by Doug, second by Scott. Seeing no other discussion, we will go ahead and go to vote. Councilmember Smith, were you able to?
We got it.
Okay. And 5-0. Congratulations. Hey,
Mayor, can I ask on the timing?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. What's the timing? When do we start getting Hawaiian food?
You have to come up to the mic, sorry.
Thank you.
If you'll come state your name and just the one question, we just want to know timing and just confirm maybe the tenant if you have a signed lease.
Yeah, Thomas Lenhart. The only thing we have left to do to start is just getting the building permit. So we'll have that submitted here real quick. And then however long that takes, we'd be starting right after. So it's our intent.
What's your timing?
As soon as possible.
Yeah, and the intent is that going on the site work, we've got to get some parking in place so that we can kind of redo the stuff in front of Wendy's. And it's kind of a
So are you thinking spring they'd be open?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, and I've probably, Rob, I should ask
About
that.
6
If they
months.
re-tenant this, let's assume that tenant
Yeah.
moves, it stays as a pickup window only, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And their traffic impact study specifically said drive-through won't work, and we're going to keep that for any future tenants.
Okay, we look forward to getting some food.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Let's move on.
Can I make another motion?
What?
I move that the city staff pick up supper for us since we have these 6 o'clock meetings from Mo Beta.
We didn't have that on the agenda. Maybe we could add that to the agenda.
I'll go get it.
Well, you're not needed the next one. Okay. Did anyone happen to go down to the new Fizz in Lehigh yesterday? Did anyone see what happened there in that parking lot?
The Swig or the Fizz?
It was a Fizz, right? Maybe I don't know. It's one of the drink.
I don't remember which one it was. Yeah, we went to get haircuts yesterday, and my goodness, there's quite a line.
It was the most crazy. They had police officers out directing traffic. They went into MACU, came up behind. Then they went out on the road. Then they came and they went behind where the little Chinese place was at. I think the haircut place came. Then they came in that parking lot and went back up to finally get to the drive-through. And I'm going, whoa! All for a free drink.
Yeah, I think they had to call in Disney to straighten it out.
Yeah, it was just, we're talking about parking on man. You talk
Yeah.
about some chaos. Okay, we're now going to move on to our next item, which is item number 3D, which is this is going to be our investment fund, investment policy, and we'll have David Mortensen. We'll walk through that, David.
Yes. Thank you. To liven up the meeting, we're going to talk about financial policies.
Yes.
So,
finally, been waiting.
everybody wake up. Okay, so in the last couple of meetings, we've had discussions about city investments. We've talked about potential kind of new directions to diversify our investments. In relation to that, we're bringing before the council tonight an investment policy. So just going through the various parts of this policy, the scope is to delineate responsibilities and also establish internal controls for the safekeeping and investment of the city's monies. The policy includes a prudence section, basically using the prudent persons rule, so investment shall be made with the exercise of that judgment and care which persons of prudence, discretion, and intelligence exercise in the management of their own affairs, considering the probable safety of their capital as well as the probable income to be derived. So we want to make sure that we're making wise decisions with our investments, that we're using discretion and intelligence in those. Next slide, Jay. There's a section about conflicts of interest and ethics. So essentially, we are saying that in regard to the investment of city monies, that all officers and city officials should have great integrity, honor, and follow all ethics. Specifically to conflicts of interest, there was a question raised, what does this mean about, like, if I have a bank account with a particular bank that we're depositing money with or investing money with, that would not be considered a conflict of interest if you just have a personal or a business banking account where you hold some of your personal money. But if you were to be, say, an officer or have an interest in such an institution, that could institute a conflict of interest, and that would just have to be disclosed if you were to make any of the decisions related to investments in that particular entity. Objectives of this policy. So first of all, everything would be in accordance with the Utah Money Management Act. That's what determines what we can invest in, how long the investments can be, all those things. It will be in accordance with that, and in some areas will actually be more restrictive than the Utah Money Management Act, and I'll specify what those differences are. The three main priorities with our investment policy is the safety of the public funds, liquidity, making sure that we have the cash that we need when we need it in order to accomplish the goals of the city. And then third priority, of least importance, but still something that we want to make the most of if possible, is the yield, our return on investment, the money that we're putting into these investments.
With those three priorities in order,
yes,
the new system of taking a certain percentage of money and putting it in the long term so that we don't get vulnerable rate changes, it seems that priority 3 comes ahead of priority 2, because those funds are not going to be liquid. It doesn't mean it's wrong, but it means in that instant.
It definitely shifts that.
It shifts that, it
balance.
reverses it in reality.
Yeah, so we still consider liquidity a higher priority, but we
by
feel
having
that
more funds in the liquid portion of it.
right, we feel that we can balance liquidity and yield, and they're still both priorities. We're still making sure that we have the liquidity that is needed. So we look at that first, and once we determine we do have the liquidity that's needed, we have excess funds that we can establish a higher yield with those.
Very good.
Yep.
Very good.
Next slide, Jay. So a big part of the policy is putting in internal controls when it comes to our investments. So we'll go through a number of these allowable investments. So any investment that we make as far as corporate bonds must have, the corporation must have a credit rating of single A or higher. Or equivalent if it's a rating agency that doesn't use that system. But so nothing below A, so any like B bonds, triple B, double B, B rating, we would not be able to invest in. Anything that's A, double A, triple A, we would be able to. And that rating needs to come from 2 or more public rating agencies. As far as commercial paper, which are shorter term investments, those are rated a little bit differently by the rating agencies. They just use different lettering. So we require in our policy the top tier, which would be A1, P1, or F1, depending on which rating agency you're looking at.
On the A, rather than AA and AAA ratings, is this standard that municipalities would allow a single A? Because it seems to me it's public funds that we've got to protect. Why are we compromising not just going with AAA? Does it make it too narrow of options for us? Or why do we allow a AA and a single A when we have a AAA option out there that we could restrict that to? And given that it's public funds, that seems like and that's just not knowing finance from anything.
It does narrow the investments that are out there that we can invest in. Not to say that there's not enough AAA out there if you look for it, but for example, a lot of local jurisdiction bonding is in the AA category rather than AAA. So if we wanted to invest in a portion of our funds in a county or a city that has some revenue bonds, we would be able to do that under this policy, where if we restricted it to AAA only, we would not be able to. This is the recommendation of Meter, the entity or the company that we are looking at partnering with in managing a portion of our portfolio. And this is their recommendation and meets with the Utah Money Management Act. So.
I'm more interested in other municipalities. Do we know that they are doing this same thing, or are they more restrictive?
That's a great question. I haven't looked at specific policies of other cities to know if in this particular case they're more restrictive or not. If I had to guess, I would say that they're in a similar A or higher rating category.
I would just, for my own comfort level, I would like to know the answer to that.
Sure.
So let me ask you this, David. So when we go back, we always can, there's certain times in the market which has been very volatile. We all remember 2008. As we look at these different ratings, were there areas in these ratings that were a higher risk because of what happened in 2008? Like, was your rating of it just a single A versus a double A versus a triple A? Was there some of those the double A's or single A's that faltered and they lost money? I mean, we're trying not to lose money. We're trying to make a little bit of money because we're having it sit versus putting it at the great risk.
Yeah, certainly there's risk with companies that you invest with that have any rating. A AAA could still have issues, and I'm sure some of those entities did have issues during the Great Recession. But your chances, your risk of that happening are much lower with a higher rated agency. Did that answer your question sufficiently? In the way of diversification, so this is looking at percentages of our portfolio that we are able to invest with various different types of investment instruments. So first we'll talk about corporate bonds or commercial paper. There's a maximum allowable that we can invest up to 5% of our total portfolio in these types of investment instruments. So that does include corporate bonds, commercial paper, and then other obligations. I mentioned revenue bonds of other cities or counties or taxing districts within the state of Utah. We can only put up to 5% of our total money in any one of those investments. Next slide, Jay. And then moving to, so these are federal banks and federal mortgage institutions. This is where this policy differs a little bit from the Money Management Act. According to the Money Management Act, we could invest up to 100% of our portfolio in any one of these areas. But the advice of the experts, in this case Meter Public Funds, was that it's more wise, more prudent to limit that to up to 50%. In practice, I've been told by them that they would never go above about 25%, but this just gives more of an upper bound than anything that we would not likely bump into, but is allowable if circumstances were such that it would benefit the city. So this includes federal banks such as the Federal Farm Credit Bank, Federal Home Loan Bank, Federal Home Loan Mortgage Corporation, and Federal National Mortgage Association. Other U.S. government agency securities or treasuries, we could invest up to 100% of our portfolio. They're considered much safer investments than, say, a corporate bond or commercial paper or even local entity bonds because they are backed by the U.S. government. So the Utah Money Management Act allows us to invest all of our funds in these if we wanted to. That doesn't seem like it's providing much diversification. Kind of similar to the federal banking institutions, it's not common practice to put 100% of your investments in any one of these federal government agencies or treasuries. And if the council was inclined to, we could define more constraint into the policy and lower that percentage for these types. This is just the basically copy and paste from what the Utah Money Management Act allows us to do.
And even if we're allowing 100% investment in T-bills, for example, that would still be, having 100% investment there would still be predicated on prudent person rule and following our objectives.
Right.
Yeah.
So if it doesn't make sense for the city, then we wouldn't do it, and our partners would not do it. Yep. CDs, we can invest in CDs up to the FDIC limit, and then negotiable CDs, which is just a CD that you can turn around and sell on the secondary market if you want to. Those are limited to 97% of the FDIC limit.
Tell me what that limit is.
That's a great question that I should have looked up before this presentation. If it's similar to deposit limits, it's $250,000. I don't know if that's any different for a CD.
So that's a drop in the bucket if we're doing 15 million.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Do you know why the bonds are limited to 5%? I mean, what's behind that? Just generally speaking, just been around long enough to know that when the stocks crash, the bonds go up. When the stocks do great, the bonds tend to not do as well.
Yeah.
So it's kind of an offsetting. In my own personal retirement, I did 60% stocks and 40% bonds because I wanted that protection that the bonds gave me. This limits us to 5%?
5% of one bond issuer. So it's not saying, so it's not saying that only 5% of our total portfolio can be in bonds. It's like 5% could be invested in a Utah County bond. If they were issuing bonds, we could purchase whatever that percentage of our portfolio comes out to be.
And even in 2008, that little system I had kind of really worked to my advantage because my bonds helped protect me from that big crash of 2008.
All right, next slide, Jay. Other controls, so guidelines for deposits with financial institutions. Not only are there limits to who we can invest our money with, there's limits on what banks we can deposit our money with. This includes not just investments, but also our deposits, so like our checking and savings accounts, money market accounts. Anything that we invest or have held by a Utah bank shall be limited to 5% of that bank's capital and deposit base. So essentially, we can't invest all of our money in a small startup bank where we are the sole client or one of a few clients, just because that doesn't create a very strong base for that banking institution, and we wouldn't want that bank to fail. So that sets a guideline there. So currently, our checking account is with Wells Fargo Bank. Most of our investments are with the Utah Public Treasurers Investment Fund, large institutions that have billions of dollars in their deposits. So,
and to piggyback on that comment for just a moment, the PTIF is that I noticed that that's not listed on the things that we're allowed to invest in. Should it be?
Yeah, the PTIF is part of the Utah Money Management Act is setting those guidelines for the PTIF. So the state treasurer is bound by these same percentages as far as like corporate bonds and commercial paper, and they have to follow those same guidelines. So the act does not mention the PTIF as one of the allowable investments for cities, just because it's kind of a broader policy for any investments, which would include those that are held by the PTIF and invested in those various areas.
But if we're passing a policy that says we're only allowed to invest in these things, and we don't have PTIF on that list, we're investing $15 million with PTIF. Park City has it listed on their policy, which incidentally also has a limit of AA-rated bonds. They were just the first city with a policy that I looked up just now. I wasn't going out specifically looking for PTIF, but I noticed they had that on their list of allowable investments.
But we're allowable investment. We're going to have half our money in the PTIF, right?
Right.
So that's allowable investment.
We certainly could
Except
add
that we're just talking about passing a policy that doesn't say that's one of the places we can invest our money.
Okay, now hold it, David. If we have 30 million, we're saying 15 is going to stay with the PTIF, and then the other 15 is what we're talking about for here.
Right.
Is that?
I'm sorry.
This
I'm
policy
actually looking at
would encompass all
you're
of
right.
the
It's
city's
just the
funds.
diversification table that. So the Utah Money Management Act includes PTIF as one of the, and we don't feel like we need to include a diversification limit on that because, right? Okay. Yep.
Yeah, great question. The next control regarding maturity schedule. So this is what we talked about, diversification of the maturities of our investments. So different types of instruments were allowed different lengths of maturity. So we're allowed a 5-year investment in U.S. Treasuries, agencies, negotiable CDs, and state obligations. 3-year maturities for floating rate corporate bonds. So this is corporate bonds that have a variable rate. That they're helpful in an environment where rates are expected to increase. You would want a variable floating rate corporate bond, but in an environment where they're expected to decrease, this would not be so appetizing. Fixed rate corporate bonds were limited to 15 months and commercial paper 270 days. Next slide. Performance evaluation. So part of our policy, we require evaluation of any investments that we have outside of the PTIF to be compared to the PTIF rate to ensure that it makes sense to continue investing in the way that we are. So we will have, and this goes along with reporting as well, we'll have regular meetings with our investment advisors. They'll present or provide monthly reports to us, and then we'll have quarterly meetings with them to discuss the reports and talk about performance and liquidity needs and other things like that. And then also in the policy, our city treasurer is required to submit reports to the state as required by the Utah Money Management Act. I did want to make one recommended change to the policy that was included in the packet. There's 2 instances in the policy where it mentions a investment officer. That's not a title that we use or anything that, it's nothing that we identify separate from our city treasurer. So we're recommending that we replace the language investment officer in those 2 instances with city treasurer in the policy. Next slide, Jay. A couple of other things included in the policy: selection of investment advisor and or broker.
David, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
So in the reporting, you have reporting at the state and all these things we're required to do. Is there a category we're going to report to the council?
There's not. We could add in reporting that city staff provides investment report to the council.
I would think that we'd want to have some sort of report, at least
it's a great recommendation.
Yeah, I'd like to know how it's doing.
Yeah, we could do it on the same report as our quarterly finance report, where we give the revenue and expenditure updates and budget updates. We can add an investment portion to that report.
I'd strongly appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay, so selection of investment advisor and or broker. This is just stating that the city will analyze the credibility of brokers, dealers, and banks, that we will select them based on the classification on the Utah Money Management Council's certified dealer list or certified investment advisor list. So we can't just go out and pick anybody. They have to be reviewed and certified by the state before you can use them. And then safekeeping, all investments must be held in custody or safekeep account provided by a bank or trust company with minimum credit ratings mentioned above for corporate bonds. In this case, with the next item we'll be discussing specific to the amount we're planning to invest with Meter Public Funds, the safekeeping or custody account would be with U.S. Bank. And the reason for that is that U.S. Bank is their preferred custodial bank.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yeah.
So we don't have a U.S. Bank presence in Highland, but we do Bank of America, we have Alta Bank and Wells Fargo. And, I know this is a policy with this investment firm, but at the same time, it seems like we're always going to these banks and these institutions in our city asking for support for events or for the library or one thing or the other, but yet we're going to be putting $15 million or something into this investment firm that's investing in a bank that doesn't exist in Highland. I kind of think that's a little bit of a, I don't know. Did we look at other options, or do we just have to use U.S. Bank because that's what Meeker likes?
Yeah, so the reason that we're recommending U.S. Bank to coincide with our agreement with Meter is because they're a preferred institution for Meter, we get a discount on the custodial fees. So normally there's a 0.75 basis point fee that we would be charged by that we will be charged by the custodian. That fee, if we used U.S. Bank, Meter gives us a credit of that same amount on their fees. So that 10 basis point fee that we talked about in previous meetings, that's all inclusive of the investment advisor fee combined with the custodial fee. If we were to go with a different bank to be the custodian, there would be an additional fee on top of the 10% Meter fee. So this was just in an attempt to save on our fees that we're paying for the investment. The policy, though, the investment policy that we're recommending would not limit us for future investments or custodial. If we ever went with a different advisor to invest additional funds and they didn't have that same arrangement with US Bank, we could certainly invest with a Wells Fargo or Bank of America or somewhere else that is local. So.
But I think what Scott's bringing up is very important. I mean, you've got the new Alta Bank, which is Glacier Bank. They're much larger. I do think we need to look at, we've had Bank of America open up here. We have a couple of credit unions that are here with UCCU. We should be.
We have Wells Fargo. I just think.
Yeah, we're going and asking them to donate, but yet we're not doing business with them.
Well, and we are doing business with Wells Fargo. That's our current checking account and credit card program are both through Wells Fargo right now. But yeah, in this particular case, it's just trying to save on the fees that we pay. If the council is open to paying a larger fee to look at having a different bank be the custodian of these funds,
but
we
some
could
of
look
these banks
into
will be
it.
competitive. I mean, if you go, they're a lot of times will match what another bank's doing.
Well, they can't match free.
Yeah.
Which is what we're getting.
Yeah, Meter would
by
not
going
give
to
the
US
same
Bank.
credit.
We're having money deposited in that bank. And depending what, you have to understand, they are making money on our deposit.
Right, but US Bank is effectively not charging us anything.
Yeah, they are, but then we're getting an equal credit by Meter on the fees that they charge by.
When you talk about 3/4 of a point, is that?
Yeah, it's on
in
the next slide, I believe. Or no, it's on the next item, sorry. When we talk specifically about the Meter agreement, I have a slide that talks about it. I think it was just over $1,000
And
per
you're right,
year.
that's the right time to talk about it rather than with the policy.
I still would like to see if there's other options that way. I really would. When you've got 3 banks that have presence in the city, and then we're always going and asking them for donations. I mean, they'll get wind of this real quick. Well, gee, you put all your money in US Bank, they're not even here. Why should we donate your things?
Yeah, the biggest concern I have is just with timing. I think in the last meeting we discussed that we're kind of coming up to another Fed rate meeting where it's anticipated that they may lower rates. So if we can get this all in place before that happens, we can lock in some investments at a higher rate. Of course, that's not everything. You know, yield is third of priority on our list. So if the council wanted to continue this and have us look at other options as far as custodian, we certainly could do that. We just may be missing out on some potential higher interest rate investments if we do that.
So is the question whether or not the selection of investment advisor and our broker or safekeeping that's up on the screen here is something that we should not be adopting? Or is the concern that on the next agenda item, when we're talking about signing up with US Bank, we should talk about signing up with somebody else?
Yeah, I don't see any concern with the safekeeping item that's in the policy. It's not specifying US Bank in any way. It's just stating that any investments must be held with some type of custodian.
I do actually want to come back to the PTIF question again. The safekeeping. Does the way we currently handle PTIF meet this safekeeping policy?
Yeah, I think because PTIF is also required to hold funds in a qualifying custodial account, that in turn meets the qualification for us, because they hold our funds in a custodial account. All right, I think that's everything that I had, so I'm happy to answer any further questions that the council may have.
Any questions for Dave?
Did we want what did we decide, a quarterly
Maybe
report?
a quarterly update, since this is a new aspect. Do we want to put that part of the motion to be a quarterly update?
Yes. I will. So I'll make the motion. Are we ready for motion, Mayor?
Yes, we are.
I move the Highland City Council approve the resolution adopting the Highland City investment policy with one stipulation, that the City Council receive a report of the progress and the financial status of this on a quarterly basis.
Scott, are you also intending, when you talk about the resolution, are you including the change that David mentioned of the 2 changes from investment officer to city treasurer?
Of course.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I have a motion by Scott.
I'll second.
Motion by Kim. If there's no further discussion, we'll go to the vote.
Let's see if we agree.
That passes 5-0. Okay. I'll move on to the next item, which is the agreement with, and how you say, is it just?
Meter? Yeah, meter public
funds. For managing a $15 million investment portfolio along with opening the U.S. Bank custody account.
Yep. Thank you, Mayor. So related to the previous item, now that we have an approved investment policy, this agreement, as discussed in previous meetings, would be with Meter Public Funds to be an investment advisor and manager of a portfolio of a portion of the city's monies, specifically a portfolio of $15 million. The funds would be invested according to the investment policy that was just adopted by the council and the Utah Money Management Act. This includes that custodial or safekeeping account with U.S. Bank. The resolution would include authorizing 3 signers as authorized signers on the account, including myself, City Treasurer Candace Linford, and City Administrator Aaron Wells. And as discussed previously, the total annual fee would be 10 basis points or 0.10% of the total portfolio balance. The way that is split up is 0.0925% would go to Meter Public Funds. So on an investment of $15 million, that would be $13,875 annually. And U.S. Bank, as the custodian, would receive 0.0075% or $1,125 on a $15 million portfolio. That's all the information I have right now. We've discussed this previously, but I'm happy to entertain questions or further discussion items that were brought up in the last item.
So help me understand. So we're paying them to help move the money. Why does the bank need to have any money? My question is, they have this money, they're making money because there's money sitting in their bank. Why are they charging us a fee? I mean, we keep saying, oh, U.S. banks get a credit, but when you put money in banks, they usually pay us an interest rate. So why are we getting a fee from U.S. Bank?
Yeah, the amount of money, so a custodial account is a little bit different than just like a money market or a savings account where that bank is able to go and invest that money and keep the interest earnings. It's just a custodial account where funds are held while they're not being invested in something else for us. And we are the ones earning the interest on those investments, not the bank. So in this case, in order for U.S. Bank to stay in business for these types of dealings, they would need to charge a fee because they're not getting interest on the investments that are being made.
So does that mean that Wells Fargo may not even be interested in being a custodial because they're not really gaining anything? They would have to charge us a fee to become a custodial bank of that money.
Right. Certainly they would, I think, entertain the idea and charge us a fee, and that's what would make it worth it for them is getting our business and an additional fee.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I know
it's not like they're getting $15 million to be able to invest and do what banks normally do when you have a savings account or money market or anything else. Okay.
Yeah. From my experience, U.S. Bank is one of the more used or larger trust or custodial type institutions. In prior cities that I've worked for, all of our construction bond accounts and reserve fund accounts related to bonds were all held in trust with U.S. Bank. So I think it's something that they do a lot of and that they do well. I've not had experience with the other banks being a trustee or a custodial for investments. I'm sure that they provide similar services. I'm not aware of what their fees would be.
So, I kind of like to go back to the U.S. Bank thing a little bit. I don't have any problem with our agreement with Meter because we did reach out and look at other companies. Okay. I am a little uncomfortable with just using U.S. Bank, even though it makes good sense, without making some approach to these other banking corporations, especially when they have a presence in the city. Now, I'm going to say a conflict of interest. I own stock in Alta Bank, and I have an investment account with Bank of America through Merrill Lynch. And I was kicked out of Wells Fargo one time. But anyhow,
Thank you, Scott.
Story for another time.
That's a story we'll have to hear later on.
There's a long story. But anyhow, I just would feel more comfortable if we at least had some approachment there, because we do go to these banks in the city and say, will you donate to the library? Will you donate to this? And I'm a little uncomfortable with them coming back and saying, well, you didn't even ask us if we could help you with this, and yet you put $15 million in this other bank that's not here. Do you see what I'm talking about? Yeah. Maybe it's just not understanding how finances work, but I do know how when we go to approach people to help us do things, because we may be trying to do fundraising for a new senior citizen center, or we may be doing fundraising here and there. And I know I've worked with the library down in American Fork, and the Alta Bank down there and the Bank of American Fork previously have poured thousands of dollars into that library. And they've donated to ours, as far as I know, too. So I guess we've never got one penny of donations from U.S. Bank. And I don't know. I just have a little trouble with it.
Sure.
I would, with Scott, I don't know if it'd hurt to at least make a call to Wells Fargo or Alta Bank or even UCCU. I understand a lot of the credit unions are more personal, oriented, but they've also started doing some business services. And maybe Meter would have, you could consult with Meter on saying, hey, other than U.S. Bank, have you ever worked with Wells Fargo or Alta Bank?
Or Bank of America. We have Bank of America.
Yeah, we have
here.
Bank of America, or maybe even UCCU.
You're right, the credit unions.
I'm just saying, we have, if we go, it is hard to, it is hard to walk into some of these banks as we do things and going, hey, you keep asking us, but are you also looking to us to support us as a business here? So. They might not offer the service, and maybe the service is not commensurate competitive, but
at least to ask.
I just looked it up, and Wells Fargo does offer custodial accounts.
I did.
So
UCCU appears they offer, but it's more of a personal. Some of your Mountain America actually does, but they don't have an office here. So
and these all sound more personal as far as what they offer. My only concern is the delay. The Fed's lowering the rate is not if, it's when and how soon. And it concerns me that we delay this for $1,000 difference here. If that $15 million was in that bank for them to invest and use, that's a different conversation. But it's not. It's a custodial account. They charge a fee because it's kind of a hassle to have it to begin with. So they're earning the fee, but that's all they're earning. So it's not a $15 million deal, it's a $1,000 deal, and to me it's a non-issue, but that's just my view.
What is the cost, primarily staff time, I would imagine, from involved with moving our custodial account?
It's pretty minimal. Because of the reports that Meter would be sending us monthly, that gives us all the information that we need to create the reports that we send to the state. So maybe just a little bit more of staff time, first of all, to hold the quarterly meetings with the investment advisor, and then also just that second source of data that we kind of have to merge together into our report to the state. It's not significant.
And with regards to relationship with Meter, is that likely also it doesn't really matter a whole lot from their perspective?
Yeah.
Okay. That being the case, I would be in favor of approving the package in front of us, and over the next 6 months, checking with local Highland banks to see with the possibility of switching our business.
That seems right.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think that's a good point that Scott brought up. We should support our local businesses.
Okay, with that, do we have a motion on this one?
I move that the Highland City Council approve the resolution authorizing an agreement with Meter Public Funds for the management of a $15 million investment portfolio, along with the opening of a U.S. Bank custody account with Candace Linford, Treasurer, David Mortensen, Finance Director, and Aaron Wells, City Administrator, designated as authorized signers on the account.
Motion by Doug,
I'll second it.
second by Ron. And it is 4-1. Okay. We'll now move on to the next item, which is item number 3F, which is baseball field use policy and rental fees. This will be Jay.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
And
Kim. So the rental policy and fee schedule has been before you a couple of times. So to streamline this, I wanted to focus on some of the comments or questions that were brought up through emails after the packet was received. Doug, you mentioned that it was hard to tell what changes were being made in the fees. This hopefully satisfies your, not your curiosity, but your right to know. And so...
Yeah, just to clarify or emphasize that I think that when we are changing the fee schedule, we should always be looking at a marked up copy of the fee schedule so that we can see exactly what it is and be absolutely certain of what we're changing.
Yeah, you're right.
So that's those are the proposed changes to the fee schedule. I also have provided for you at your spot there a revised version of the resolution that provides that changes it so that the resolution is adopting both the policy and the fee schedule.
The practical change here for nonprofits, they're going from a great advantage of $75 to $300 because they're now grouped in with all for profit and nonprofit. We're not making that distinction. How many entities does that apply to? Are there many nonprofits that are currently taking advantage of the lower fee? And do we know what kind of impact that's going to have on them wanting to use our facilities? It's going to cost them 4 times more.
I know that absolutely, if they're a nonprofit, they provide us that certificate so they can get the nonprofit rate. I don't know if there's a lot who are doing like a full day rental. I'd say it's more for practices and things, so it's an hourly change, but it still is going from $5 to $20, right? So it's still, to your point, 4 times more expensive. Will it impact them? Yes, but I know that Jay's done research to show that these rates are competitive, right? The new rates would be competitive. We are drastically undercharging now, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It's kind of a choice we made. We went from not charging anything to charging a minimal amount to this would be charging what other cities are charging from a competition standpoint.
And Rob, my recollection is that since the point of city fees is to recoup our costs, that we are not legally obligated, we are not legally permitted to charge different rates for nonprofit versus for-profit. Is that?
There's actually a provision in state law that says you can waive fees for charities and nonprofits if you go through a public hearing process. So the default is to charge them the same.
Okay.
I just want to talk on that. So when you're doing nonprofit versus for-profit, most people that rent these are basically, when you form a soccer team or a baseball team that isn't part of a club, it's usually a dad that is doing it. And he's probably shelling out money out of his own pocket, but he doesn't have a nonprofit entity because it's just a dad coaching the team. So he's having to pay the higher rate, even though most likely all these kids are doing this because they can't pay the club fees. The clubs, though, have nonprofit status, but they're making money. So it actually is giving a discount to those making money and charging more to those who are doing this out of their own good and out of their own pockets.
So Kim, who would we be affecting? Like, who are our nonprofits that have been renting some of our baseball fields? Who are we affecting here?
I mean, you know, most people that run our baseball fields are dads that are coaching their own teams. So there are, you know, academies that are nonprofits, that say they're nonprofits. They can afford to pay this because they're actually charging probably 10 times more money than the dads that are coaching their teams.
So, Kim,
yeah,
I know and I think you feel these fees are very fair. So what about these dads? Are they going to be able to pay $300?
Well, I mean, when you divide that by 12 kids.
So
yeah.
Each one of them will pay.
But that's for a full day.
That's a full day.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I did pass this by some teams saying, hey, is
What do you
this something that's able to be affordable? I think some said, you know, we are paying slightly more than if we were at Riverton City doing this, but for the convenience of staying in our own city, we're willing to pay that. If you did want to look at that ball field prep fee, maybe lowering that a little bit or lowering the $35 to $30 an hour, and it would make it more comparable to Riverton. But then they did say, but you know, when you break it out between 12 to 13 kids over a team, within that, then
and
we
you
can
don't
handle
have
it.
to transport them to Riverton.
Yeah.
And the traffic's getting terrible.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So you feel comfortable that these are fair?
Yeah. Yeah. I will say one thing. So I did get feedback on this. And so for games, you do have like 2 hours for games, but most teams come an hour early and warm up, and the field is just open for them for warming up. So that was one thing that they said. If there's a way to be able to have that field open for them to warm up for an hour, or have an area to warm up like the cages or something like that, that's usually provided whenever there are games. So they did ask about that.
So really, for a game,
yeah.
we're only charging $35, where if they came and did a 3-hour practice, let's assume,
well,
they pay $60. Where if
it's
they're doing a
$35
game-
per hour.
Yeah, but
so
if they're
games are 2 hours.
Okay, so if they're doing a practice for 3 hours, because you're saying they need to come an hour before the game, they're getting charged $60 if it's a practice, but if it's a game, they're going to get charged $70.
Yeah, plus they have to do $50 prep fee.
Okay.
And then they have to pay
But they don't prep for practice, right?
No. And then they have to also pay about $120 for an umpire. So games are quite expensive just to have a game on your field.
Umpires make $125?
I would never even do it for $120. There's no way.
People yelling at you?
Kick dirt on your
those
shoes.
kids.
Don't say anything, Brittany.
So my nephew may or may not have umpired Kim's kids' games. We don't need to talk about it, though.
I mean.
Okay. Anyway, let's come back. Is there anything on the field rental fees that we feel like need to be adjusted to what's being presented?
Can somebody just remind me why we're not charging resident and non-resident rates for baseball when we do for pavilions and our campground and...
We actually talked to American Fork about this because they took out their resident versus non-resident, and they essentially said it's kind of null because you're just going to go and find a resident to book it for you. So, and it was a lot harder as well to verify residency versus non-residency. So they just basically said, we're just doing across the board.
That'd be a curious. So on our pavilions, let's go look. We have pavilions that get rented. How many are non-residents renting our pavilions versus residents? Does anyone have any feedback on that?
I think it's a little different because you have one person running a pavilion kind of thing, but when it comes to sports, you're probably going to have 20 kids on that team, and you're just going to say, okay, there we go. You're a resident of Highland, that one person on my team.
But that's, I figure that even with price from the pavilions, they might say, hey.
They'll do that, yeah.
I assume it might be summer.
They do it with the cemetery too, right? Anytime that you give a resident discount, somebody's going to find somebody that they know who lives in Highland to get the discount.
That's why you're saying that American Fork
just
said the other way.
Yeah.
Resident, non-resident rates are habitually circumvented in every city across the nation. It's a great idea, but it's hard to implement. And part of the slowdown in being able to reserve fields and things like that were because people were getting upset that they couldn't just go online, reserve the pavilion, and be done. They had to wait X number of business days to find out if the reservation was accepted. And it was because we had to verify a resident versus non-resident status manually. Staff, Shelley, had to do that. And so it just is something that we felt could go by the wayside without a lot of impact, because it was being, I won't say cheated, but
Are there
people were
other
finding
questions
ways
we have on
around
this?
No. I have one change that do you have more?
I was just going to
Ray?
ask, so
Jay?
Kim, would you prefer that, because right now we have a 2-hour block is what the policy says for games. You want us to change that to 3
Yeah,
for optimal?
I mean, whenever you have a game, teams are always going to come an hour early and warm up. I mean, whether it's like right by the field, like in the outfield kind of thing. So yeah, I'd do 3 on that. And I think my only other thing was I was looking at it. It said no games on Friday. I know we talked about that, but if you do want to have tournaments, they're always Friday, Saturday. So maybe just not limit it for now and see what happens.
Okay.
It's better to just be a little bit more general than restrictive.
So, Stephanie, why don't you put this in the minutes? I agree with Kim on this.
That literally is said every council meeting.
I know, I was going to say, I think there's more agreeable times than there are unagreeable times. Okay,
I
with
want to put this in the minutes as well. I want to thank Kim for all the work that I know that she's put. I've walked into this building more than once, and she's in there meeting with these people to work all this out. So thank you for all your work on this.
Oh, thank you, Ron.
No, I agree. Kim, you've put a lot of time. This has been, it's not just in the last month you've had to meet with it. You're also, your skill and your input from this is very valuable.
Hopefully I did it right.
If not, we'll be hearing about it.
Exactly.
So, question back on the 2-hour versus 3-hour for games. What I thought I just heard was that we should extend that from a 2-hour maximum to a 3-hour maximum, which means that they are paying for 3 hours of field time. What I thought I had heard initially from you was that if they reserve it for 2 hours of game time, then the hour beforehand for practice is thrown in.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong here, Aaron. I mean, people will have games and you can warm up and there's somebody on that field. But sometimes games only last an hour and a half and then they can go on practice for half an hour before their game or something like that. I would just say if they have a game, they reserve it for 2 hours. You know, if there's nobody else playing on that field, open it up the hour before, let them warm up kind of thing. I mean, because they are paying $70 plus $50 and then umps on that field as well. So they're still paying a good amount of money to be on there.
So we charge them for 2 hours, but you're asking us to open it for 3 hours essentially for them, for the warm-up time. Kind of include that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, but if people have a game before, then you don't have to block that hour before.
That's fair.
That's
If it's
knowledge.
open.
Yeah.
Okay.
So should the text then say like up to 3-hour time slot for games?
Yeah. Yeah, just do that more general.
Yeah.
I also have one change that I would like to make to the resolution. I would just like to add a 4th clause to it, which is basically our boilerplate that we always add to ordinances. I'm not sure it's made it into the resolutions template yet, but that the city recorder, under the supervision of the city administrator and city attorney, may make non-substantive corrections to any portion of this resolution or policy for grammatical, typographical, numbering, and consistency purposes in accordance with the expressed intent of the city council.
I thought you were going to add refreshments for
that we just add
every motion. So everyone understood what you're going to get that to Steph?
I'll agree with that. I'll second that. If it's part of
I don't think we don't have a motion yet. So
No, there's no motion, but I'll agree
We'll need
to
to
it.
have that included in that. Okay, do we have a motion?
I move that City Council pass a resolution to adopt the proposed changes to the city fee schedule and the Highland City baseball field use policy as updated today, September 2nd, 2025, and include what Doug said.
Item number 4, I think. Okay, I have a motion by Kim,
I'll second it.
second by Scott.
You guys should come watch a game on that new field. It is gorgeous.
I bet it is.
Okay, that passes 5-0.
Okay,
Now-
and we had the change, the 3 hour, the game time. Was there another change that I'm missing, or was it just that?
I thought that was the only
Okay,
was the
great,
change to the
thank you.
policy.
So doubleheader says 4 hours for doubleheader. Is that 6 hours for doubleheader or 5
5.
now? 5?
5 for double, 3 for one.
Oh, and Fridays. Just leave Fridays. Yeah.
Go. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll now move on to our communication items, or actually it's item number 4A, which is agenda item. This is just a discussion item only. This is about daycare, in-home instruction, home-based business, and residential zone land use, which is legislative. So Rob, this will be you. And me.
And Mayor.
I asked this to be put on the agenda, so.
So just as, I put this in the staff report, so the council, most of you, I think, were here, and we had that long discussion about in-home instruction and preschools and daycares. And essentially, we added daycares and in-home instruction as additional uses for our residential zones, R120, R130, R140. And effectively, as staff has implemented it, that kind of operates as an exception to our home occupation rules, which talk about, you can't generate new traffic, you can't use your yard, all of that. So that kind of is an exception in our residential zones for these uses. It came up, we denied a in-home instruction home occupation in Ridgeview on one of the larger lots. And so kind of looking through it again, we really only allow it in the residential zones. We don't allow it in town center, so anything around here, 10700 or Ridgeview. So the summary is kind of, is this operating as the council wants it to operate? Should we allow daycares and in-home instruction in town center, Ridgeview, or 10700, or should we maybe just allow it in larger lots, say quarter acre or larger, which would be the size of many of our like Canterbury type homes or Beacon Hills? Are there any concerns with how staff has interpreted and applied these rules? Mayor, was there anything else you wanted me to touch on?
No, what it appears, we have over there, we have the Ivory area in Ridgeview that have some larger lots, and it seemed, maybe I'm going, okay, we're applying, because they live in Ridgeview, they cannot have certain uses, and it did not seem to, you could be in a smaller lot in other places of the city versus here, and it didn't seem to apply. However, we have to understand Ridgeview could also, they're in the HOA, they can have their own rules. We could pass this tonight, and as an HOA, they can deem it that they don't want any business or any of these instructions. So this is just, as a city, are we interested in certain zones to look at this?
And incidentally, in the case that kind of brought this forward, I'm told that the HOA has already approved it.
Okay. So let me add, some of the things I think to consider is, okay, they can do piano. Now we're talking about in-home instruction, if it be any music or singing, but we have those who might be having swimming lessons, as the case was over in the Ridgeview area. The concern, I think, is about the generation of traffic, if they have an employee, some of the aspects that way. I know in some of our open space subdivisions, they actually have maybe larger lots. Like if you're in an R120, they have 110-foot frontage, where in an R140, they have 130. Now, in some of your open space, it might be a little smaller. And over in Ridgeview, I think some of these, it might only be 70 or 90 feet on the lot, which is a concern because your parking out front's not as large.
And I think that I checked, and again, the case that really kind of brought this to our attention, I think, is a 90-foot frontage.
So it's different than an R120. So council, is this something we should be discussing, changing in any of these zones, or are we okay with the current code?
I would like to look at extending that out across our residential zones.
All residential zones?
With a quarter acre seems reasonable.
Me too.
So quarter acre, you're not
like
talking
that.
here in the town center. If they're not on a quarter acre, they'd be able to do it. Only lot sizes quarter acre or higher.
Yeah.
I'm talking here in the town center also, but nobody will qualify for it because of the quarter acre. Yes.
So what am I hearing?
Per
I'm
acre, I
hearing
think,
that-
gets to the spirit of why we would be concerned. I mean, the frontage does a little bit, but not as much as the size of the property. So quarter acre, to me, meets the requirement, and if it happens to be in Ridgeview or Town Center, that's where it's at. So why would we restrict it if it's a quarter acre? So I'm in favor of it.
Rob, I just thought of a procedural question. So 10700, I mean, RPDs are approved independently, right? It's like they have their own code. Does that mean we have to go back and change those code, or can we put something in our development code that says any, in
If you're on a quarter
PDs,
acre
when
or
you're
larger.
over a quarter acre, right, you can do this?
Yeah, what I would probably do is, given kind of what I'm hearing kind of as a sentiment of the council, is I would take it out of the residential zones and make it, because our home occupations say in any residential unit, because before it didn't apply to Toscana, we're like, that's silly. You should do home occupations in Toscana as long as you don't, generate unusual traffic. So we just changed so all home occupations are allowed in any residential unit. We'd probably do a similar thing and just clarify home occupations, and then have like a subsection for home occupations that are daycares and in-home instruction are allowed in all residential units or lots that meet the following requirements, and write it out like that. Something along those lines is what I would do. So we don't change their development, their PDs or any of that. We just make a code that applies to them because they're residential units.
So let me ask, what restrictions would you put? Because I'm not sure how you can do a daycare if you don't have any yard.
I think the quarter acre, and you'd have to, so daycares, it was Kelly that did all of the work on that, so I'm going to have to educate myself on it. I think it was daycares that have a lot more of the state licensing requirements and open
Right.
space, so they still have to get state licensed, so there's a minimum outdoor space you have to have for a daycare. I would just leave that up to the state, and if we have a minimum lot size, that'll likely encompass it regardless.
So you're saying you would put in there they have to follow the state regulations for the daycare?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean in the residentials, do they want to teach piano lessons, or if they have a pool in the back, may teach swimming lessons? I don't have any problem with that. There's two problems you're going to run into is, these really small lots, how are you going to do some of these activities, and two, parking and traffic. And we have to be careful because we went through a big deal with Alpine food storage.
Yes.
And so I think we need to be cautious, but I think you should be able to do these things in all residential zones with some limitations, stipulations.
So it sounds like the direction is to move forward with doing some code changes to kind of even that out. Maybe I'll just ask priority-wise and timing-wise.
And I just want to ask from this, like sometimes we have care centers, or this does not open any door for any youth treatment centers, any type of stuff. That it's totally separate. I just want to make sure that it's
Yes.
not. I just want to make sure it doesn't open any other aspects.
No. So just timing-wise, we're kind of in right to general plan, and then I have to take this to Planning Commission because this is a development code update. Is this something you want implemented by the end of the year, or is it, how urgent is this? What do you want? Because I can accommodate what the council desires.
I would like it in the general plan, whatever that requires us timing-wise.
We don't need to put it in the general plan. I'm just saying.
Oh, we don't?
The next two meetings for the Planning Commission are going to be dedicated to reviewing the general plan, but I can add in, this could be an additional item there, or I can put it into November or December, or I could put it into January or February next year. Just what is the council's
And we will be
preference
doing
on
the general
timing?
plan in November and December.
Correct.
So we have
It's-
Planning Commission is going to be September, October. We're going to start seeing maybe end of October, November, December.
So
I would like this to be done in time for people to use it late spring, summer next year. I don't care if it's done in 2 weeks or if it's done the week that somebody needs to get that in order to get permission to get the permits to do it late spring, summer
So I'm
next year.
hearing, get it done, but don't, maybe it's a January thing. Okay? I will move forward that direction. Thank you, council.
Thank you. Let's move on to our next item, which actually is this going to be an election update?
Can I go back to that previous item for 1 second? I would say my only exception to that would be if Mayor Osler has a strong sense about that, since he's the one that put it on the agenda in the first place.
I think you guys have enough sense that can be post-Osler. So, but thank you for the sensitivity on that. So, okay, going on to election update, which is a communication item.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. So as you are probably all aware, our write-in deadline has passed, which means that we have 4 individuals running for City Council and we have 1 individual running for Mayor. So that's how that's going to appear on our general election ballot. Just a couple of dates for candidates to be aware of. On the 5th of September, which is this Friday at 5 p.m., your candidate bio is due to the state website. That is not my website, but it is the state's website. You should have all received a personal link, an email with a link to upload your bio.
I did not.
Did you
get
receive that?
You
You
did?
did. It should have come from elections@utah.gov.
I have not received it.
You have not, okay. I will send out an email with a general link that you
Thank
can
you.
use so that you will have that as well. But make sure you get that in before 5 p.m. on Friday, okay? The next thing will be your, those who did not advance to the general election, they are going to have a financial statement that is due on the 11th of September. So that's about all that I have. Just remember that we will be doing some candidate debate on October 9th. More information coming on that as we have it available to you. So, any questions on the election?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll now move on to some communication items. Who's going to be covering the communication items?
Community development update. Sorry, I had a list of things, and now I'm trying to remember them.
I think, so we talked about general plan timeline as well. So the Planning Commission will see that here in their meeting in September. We'll also forward it on to you, Mayor and Council, so you start to see it as well and get some time, just because we're coming down to the end. So Planning Commission will see it in September, hopefully adopt in October, and then City Council, hoping for you to see it in November and hopefully adopt by December is our overall goal there. But like I said, we'll get it to you ahead of time. And then Highland Boulevard.
Yes.
So an update on that. The roundabout at 11800 was approved by the DAB committee on whenever it was last week. And they are motivated to try to get that done before the snow flies. And so you will shortly be seeing some work there. You'll have to ultimately approve the funding for the Highland portion of that. And so that will be coming to you in a future council meeting, as well as hopefully some grant money associated with that.
And we have to buy some land, is that right? Because
we were given,
No, we managed to design the roundabout such that we did not need to acquire any additional property.
But it's designed with enough land so that we can put 2 lanes.
We can expand it to a 2-lane roundabout in the future if we need to. And we also have a right-of-way dedication for a future roundabout up at Grant. If that goes in, we might need to acquire some land on the east side, but that's a 2050 discussion.
That's fantastic.
And then we do have a grant or some funding that David Stewart has been working with that should be coming into play as this roundabout goes in. So we'll kind of be looking at that. Okay, if there's nothing else, let's just kind of look at our calendaring, and then we need to go into closed session. Okay, tomorrow we do have a Fling Appreciation Dinner at 6 p.m. at my home. If you have an RSVP to Christina, we'd love to have you be there. Is there any questions about that Fling dinner? I think
Is there anything we can bring?
No, I think Christina and myself have we're having Myers hamburgers that are going to be specially cooked with some special flavoring, and hot dogs and then other good yummies. Yes, hopefully, if you don't like it, we'll have a couple plain. Okay, on Monday night, the 8th, next Monday, we have our senior dinner, just so everyone's aware of that. On September 10th to the 12th, there's going to be a special 9/11 display down at the Utah County Fairgrounds. If you've not done that, it'll be a special display. They'll have some individuals who were back there at 9/11 that will be there you can talk with. It'll be a pretty big thing. You'll start probably hearing a little bit more. The other big thing that's going to be happening in Highland is on September 13th, we have our Day of Service. Is there anything that we need to be aware of going on with the Day of Service? There's going to be...
Sorry, I haven't gotten that list out yet, so I will get you a list of the projects going on in Highland.
Just so you're aware, on that, there'll be a lot of different entities doing a lot of service for the city. if we can make it around to tell them thank you. She has the dates up here on the 23rd is planning. The 30th is Lone Peak Public Safety, as well as that night, we've decided to do site visits. You have, of course, our city council. We have the Lone Peak Public, we're going to have another public safety meeting on the 8th.
So that's our regularly scheduled second Wednesday of the month meeting, so that would be the normal business meeting.
We don't have down, go ahead.
So the Lone Peak Public Safety District meeting that would ordinarily be held tomorrow morning is not. It will be
on the 30th.
The 30th instead. Okay.
Correct, and it'll just be more. It's really more of a work session to discuss the ILA.
And then October the 9th, as Stephanie mentioned, we also have debates. We'll have the debate here for those involved who'd like to come. So, and you can see all the other dates. If there's nothing else, it is now 9:57 or 8:57. We do have 2 items to discuss in the closed session, dealing with one with litigation, one with property. If we'd like to have a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the City Council recess the regular City Council meeting to convene in a closed meeting in the executive conference room to discuss pending or reasonably imminent litigation and the purchase, exchange, or lease of real property as provided by Utah Code Annotated Section 52-4-205.
I'll second that.
Yeah, okay.
I have a motion by Doug, second by Ron. We'll go ahead. Do we have a motion to do that, or do we just need to do roll call? Okay, we'll start down here with Brittany.
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Kim?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
We are now in closed session. If we could